Okay, good to go.
So good afternoon, everyone. We will begin in just 1 second. We see participants joining into the room. So I think we may have all of our participants in the room, so we will go ahead and begin. Hello, everyone. My name is Nafisa Owens. I'm the Assistant Director for STEM Education and Workforce at the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. And it is my pleasure to welcome everyone today to our webinar, Why Convergence Education, Preparing for the Future of STEM. So next slide, please. So first, we will just kind of provide a little bit of logistics here, and that is there is an opportunity for you to fully engage and participate in the webinar. We encourage you to take an opportunity to click on the link that you see, or to type it into your browser, and or you can use the QR code. And this will allow you to participate and engage with the audience, but also to engage with us during the course of the webinar today. So again, you can go to menti.com, you can use that code, use the full URL, and or use your camera and take a click of the QR code on the screen. Next slide. Okay, and again, here's an opportunity for you to start with the first question. We're going to ask you about the organization type that you represent, and if you are familiar with the concept of convergence education. Again, menti.com and the QR code. So again, my name is Nafisa Owens. It is, again, my great pleasure to welcome you to this webinar. We're going to start off with just a little bit of context to what we'll be discussing today. The first slide says, why convergence? So why convergence education, but why convergence to start off with? And that is in 2018, there was a 5-year STEM education strategic plan that was developed and published to meet congressional responsibilities, the American Competes Reauthorization Act of 2010. That plan was developed by the National Science Technology Council's Committee on STEM Education and with the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. And one of the 4 pathways noted within that strategic plan spoke about engaging students where disciplines converge. And so again, we want to share a little bit more about that particular pathway. The next slide just provides a visual to the other pathways that the strategic plan consisted of. Next slide. And one of the things that we would love to note today is that this strategic plan, it is very much and was very much an interagency collaboration. COSTEM has a subcommittee, and that subcommittee has representatives from across the federal government that contributed to the strategic plan's development. And also there are agency representatives that contribute to the Interagency Working Group on Convergence, who drafted this report that we'll be telling you more about today. Next slide. But one of the things that we really want to stress right now is why convergence. Why convergence is so important. And so we have a colleague here. I have a colleague here who will be sharing a little bit of why this concept of convergence is important. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to Jackie Ward, who is the Assistant Director for Community Connected Health at the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. Just to give you a little introduction to her, she is on special assignment to OSTP from her position as Chief of Staff of the National Institutes of Neurological Disorders and Stroke within the National Institutes of Health. Within that role, she has managed special projects, particularly serving as a co-chair to the executive committee leading NIH's efforts to understand and treat post-acute and long-term COVID, SARS infection. Her day-to-day responsibilities really involve coordinating cross-cutting efforts and managing communications and policies for that agency. So really, so excited to have Jackie here today. And Jackie, we'll turn the mic over to you. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks, Nafisa. And I hope everyone can hear me okay. I don't see anybody giving me like the cutoff signal, but thank you so much for the invitation and to the Interagency Working Group on Convergence and the Federal Coordination in STEM Education Subcommittee. It is my honor to be here today talking about this, and I really want to welcome the attendees today and also thank the speakers for participating. So as Nafisa said, I'm here today to underline how the principles of convergence education are really necessary to find solutions to some of today's most complex problems. And I'll give you just a few examples of those complex problems that I work on in OSTP. And I'll say that, as Nafisa mentioned, I'm a neuroscientist by training. And I've been at the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy almost 2 years now as the Assistant Director for Community Connected Health. So the lens of the complex problems that I consider and think about are really focused on healthcare and topics generally related to the brain. But I wanted to acknowledge at the top, but there are certainly many more examples across science and technology, like climate change, like achieving a clean energy transition, that I won't touch on, but are certainly important examples of complex problems too. I'll also just say that personally, the mission of this work really resonates with me since I'm not that far out of my own scientific education, and also have been involved in K through 12 STEM education. So it's very meaningful to me, this work, and really applaud everyone for contributing to it. So to get to the three sort of real world examples I wanted to highlight, most of these are things that I've been working on in my capacity at OSTP, but are really priorities from a policy point of view and to the Biden and Harris administration overall. The first is related to mental health and substance use. And the president has said that both mental health and substance use are part of his unity agenda, and really to tackle the mental health crisis and beat the opioid epidemic are important priorities to us. And so we really think about this and meeting people where they are. And so the convergence that I see in these in this topic area is really related to social science and implementation research combined with medical science and biomedical research. And in addition to that, we need technologists and engineers to contribute. And so thinking about what that really means, it's things like mental health apps. We need technologists and healthcare providers and biomedical researchers to really contribute to building things like mental health apps that can really meet people where they are and help us tackle this mental health crisis. The second example I wanted to bring up is related to the BRAIN initiative, which was started by President Obama in OSTP almost 10 years ago now. And the BRAIN initiative is a cross-agency initiative in the government where the goal is to really revolutionize our understanding of the human brain and do what the Human Genome Project did for genetics for the brain. And so this has been ongoing for 10 years, but the convergence is really around engineering, computer science, chemistry, neuroscience, and biology. And this, convergent education and work is really necessary to drive progress in brain research. And there has been some promise already in projects that have shown great promise in alleviating the symptoms of neuropsychiatric disorders, but this has only been done through a very transdisciplinary approach. I'll close with the third example, which is really thinking about digital health technologies in healthcare. And as many of us know from our own personal experience, the COVID-19 pandemic highlighted that telehealth is a big component of healthcare that's here to stay. And we recognize that technology can really be an extender of healthcare providers. And so this is something that is a very hot policy topic, but is also critical from an education standpoint because we need people who understand data and AI and machine learning and blockchain technologies along with the healthcare and medicine side of the equation. So those are my three examples. I'll say all of these complicated problems will require tomorrow's workforce and leadership to be able to see these problems from all sides and to work across disciplines to find solutions to them. And so I just welcome this work and thank you for it. And I'll close by mentioning in particular that if anybody is interested in the mental health work, we'll have some announcements about that coming out soon from OSTP, so please stay tuned. Thanks again to all of you here today. I hope you enjoyed the rest of this webinar, and back to you, Nafisa.
Thank you so much, Jackie. And so you'll see on the screen that we have already checked off our intro. We will now have an opportunity to hear more about the Convergence Education Report that was recently released. We'll also have a roundtable, a panel that will speak to implementation opportunities and some best practices. So the next slide speaks to why this webinar is important, but also particularly what we hope you will gain through your participation today. We definitely wanted to showcase through the agenda and outline that we have for today, content and resources that you will find in the report. We also wanted to explore some of the transition of convergence education as we go from theory to practice, and again, have an opportunity to hear from experts in research and practice today. And then we really wanted to also feature some examples of what is working well within convergence education for you, our audience, to consider implementing and using within your own practice and or to take advantage of from our speakers today. So with that, I will now, we'll move to the next slide where you'll have an opportunity to hear from my co-chairs to the Interagency Working Group on Convergence. Jorge and Louis, it's now on to you. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Owens, and welcome everyone again to today's webinar on the topic of convergence in STEM education. My name is Jorge Valdez, and I will be one of your facilitators for today's webinar, along with Louis Lopez and Dr. Nafisa Owens. We have truly an all-star lineup of professionals today for you today that represent academia, government, nonprofits, and practitioners in the field who are really making convergence education come to life for students of all ages. And we hope that this will be an enlightening webinar for all of you, and we thank you again for tuning in. Louis?
Thank you, Dr. Valdez. And again, good afternoon, everyone. Before we get started with going over the report, Jorge, tell us why convergence education is important to the United States and Trademark Office, Patent and Trademark Office.
Well, thank you, Louis. I'm glad you asked this question. Well, as we all know, we're living in a very rapidly changing world where new technologies and innovations are constantly emerging, and this requires us to really begin to think differently about how we educate and prepare our students for the future. And this is really where convergence education comes in. You see, as we've talked about, and we're going to talk about throughout this webinar, convergence education is a holistic approach to teaching and learning that brings multiple disciplines together in order to address complex real-world problems that need solutions. And it allows students to apply their knowledge and skills from different areas to study problems that are not easily tackled by a single discipline alone. As you know, the mission of the United States Patent and Trademark Office is to foster innovation. And so the connection between STEM education and innovation is undeniable. And convergence education is closely connected to innovation because it truly provides the foundation of knowledge and skills that are necessary to develop new technologies and solutions. And at the USPTO, our Office of Education, we focus on connecting convergence to innovation and bringing innovation to impact. And convergence education helps students develop that critical thinking and problem-solving skills, and then apply them to real-world challenges, which are key and essential to innovation. And we also need, Louis, a robust U.S. intellectual property system that fosters creativity and innovation by protecting investments of time and money to bring new products and services to the marketplace. So, hey, Louis, tell us a little bit about why convergence education is important to the Department of Defense.
Thank you, Jorge. The Department of Defense has this incredible mission of ensuring that our nation remains safe and that our men and women in uniform are equipped with the technologies they need to complete their mission and return home safely. As such, DoD scientists and engineers are always pushing the envelope when it comes to innovating new technologies. Our nation is constantly challenged with the most complex technical problems from a national security perspective, and these problems continue to evolve. Our Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering, Honorable Ms. Xu, has referred to these as critical technology areas. Our DoD scientists and engineers tackle these complex problems such as biotechnology, quantum information science, space technology, just to name a few, from a convergence approach. To ensure that we have the technical talent needed to solve these complex problems now and into the future, the DoD must be committed and are committed in developing talent as early as K through 12 to learn STEM through a variety of ways to include convergence. This is why convergence education is important to our agency and to our DoD STEM mission. The DoD also recognizes the importance of promoting diversity and inclusion in convergence education and STEM education at large, as diversity drives innovation.
Great, thank you, Louis. Our agencies have a lot in common with when it comes to convergence and STEM education. So what are we going to hear today? We're going to discuss the importance of convergence education, how it can help students develop critical thinking and problem solving skills, and how to apply them in turn to solve real world challenges. Today, we're going to hear from experts from the field who will share their insights on the challenges as well as the opportunities around convergence education and how it can begin to help prepare students for the future. We will also discuss the importance of collaboration and communication in convergence education and how it can be fostered among educators, students, and other stakeholders. As Dr. Owens pointed out, I want to remind everyone that this is an interactive webinar, and we encourage you to ask questions along the way and engage in discussion in the Q&A feature of Zoom. So let's dive in and explore the world of convergence education and its potential to really shape the future of STEM education. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. Louis?
Thank you, Jorge. So what is convergence education? The Interagency Working Group on Convergence developed a clear definition for what is convergence education in the context of STEM education and the characteristics of this approach to transdisciplinary learning and teaching. Convergence education is a method of teaching where students use a combination of different subjects to find solutions to challenging and complex problems that are related to society and science. Jorge?
So next slide, please. So in November of 2022, the Interagency Working Group on Convergence released a report that Dr. Owens referred to, entitled Convergence Education, a Guide to Transdisciplinary STEM Learning and Teaching. And we hope you have an opportunity to take a look at the output and the report itself, but wanted to give you some of the highlights that are included in the report. First of all, the report was developed with inputs from a lot of different stakeholders, engagements, research literature reviews, roundtables with K through 20 educators and university faculty, and also a public request for information, an RFI, and through extensive engagements across many federal agencies. The intended audience for this report are federal agencies and all STEM education stakeholders. So let me give you a quick rundown of some of the highlights of the report. Number one, we provide a general overview of convergence education and its relationship to transdisciplinary learning through a fairly comprehensive review of research articles on this topic. Secondly, the report establishes a pedagogical framework for pathways that can lead to convergence education while making clear that content area disciplines are and continue to be essential components of the teacher and learning progression as we go from a single discipline to multiple disciplines and to interdisciplinary, and finally to this the notion of a transdisciplinary learning experience. Louis mentioned the definition for convergence to make sure that we're all on the same page about what we're talking about. The report also takes a look at some of the goals and outcomes as seen from the lens of convergence education, and takes a candid look, if you will, at what some of the challenges as well as misconceptions in achieving convergence in institutional or instructional practice. One of the most exciting things in this report is that there really is no single path to convergence, right? The report outlines a number of both promising as well as established instructional practices, some of which you will hear about during this webinar, that will enable and support the pathway to convergence education. Among some of those practices include project-based learning, CTE, career and technical education, and as well, something that is near and dear to my heart, invention education, among many others, again, that you will hear throughout today's webinar. And lastly, the report provides a set of recommendations that reflects the collective efforts of the Interagency Working Group on Convergence. I want to end with saying that there is a clear consensus that all stakeholders must continue to collaborate and build more awareness, like we're doing today, for the role that convergence education plays in advancing science and technology to be able to stimulate innovations today and in the future that benefit society. Thank you again, everyone, for tuning in, and I turn it back to you, Louis, for our first panel session.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Valdez. As Jorge had alluded to, we had such great lineup of panelists today in all of our sessions. And we're extremely honored to have these outstanding experts in the field of convergence and transdisciplinary learning today for our first roundtable on research on convergence education and transdisciplinary learning. They'll go further into their introductions as they talk a little bit about their background, but we have Mr. Michael Comer, Dr. Carla Johnson, Dr. James Murday, and Ms. Tricia Shelton. So with that, we'll go ahead with our first panelist.
All right. Well, greetings everyone. I'm Michael Comer. My experiences are in the area of STEM and convergence education. I think really began in my middle school teaching experience back in New York and Rhode Island, trying to help the young adults make more of their learning and help them to see the relevance of what I was trying to teach them. I've been a science and math consultant doing professional development for classroom practitioners, a curriculum specialist working on program development, and lastly, as director of science marketing for Savvis Learning, formerly the Pearson Education Company. The next slide. With my co-author, the late Dr. Joanne Vasquez, we wrote 3 books that are pictured here to help the classroom teachers and district leaders integrate STEM into their classroom practices. We really started out by trying to help teachers understand the idea of what is STEM and what does that look like, and introduce that concept of the transdisciplinary approach. We then moved to helping teachers to create their own STEM units. And then lastly, we began to look at what does STEM look like in that primary classroom. I'm excited to be here today with my other esteemed colleagues, and I'll let the next one go.
Good afternoon. My name is Carla Johnson, and I'm a professor of science education and university research fellow at NC State University. I've been engaged in STEM education for nearly 2 decades, including founding 2 university-level STEM education centers and securing about $70 million in grants to fund research on implementation of STEM education policy. I've also conducted large-scale evaluation of several state-level and federal-level STEM investments, including those with the Army and the NASA Office of STEM Education. Recently, I was the lead for the inaugural Handbook of Research on STEM Education, which featured more than 100 authors from around the globe who synthesized evidence on STEM integration. I've also been featured as a co-author in the Handbook of Research on Science Education in a chapter on interdisciplinary science and STEM. I served as the editor for the School Science and Mathematics Journal for 10 years. It's an over 100-year-old research journal featuring an emphasis on integration of the STEM disciplines. One of the primary focuses of my research over the past decade has been leading our STEM roadmap project. In 2013, a team of STEM education researchers across the nation collaborated to develop a roadmap for K-12 teachers, schools, and administrators to begin the path to implementing integrated STEM. The book included curriculum maps, suggestions for professional development, advocating for policy, and addressing diversity. The second edition of this book was published in 2021. Resulting from this work has been a series of 30 additional books, each individual integrated STEM curriculum unit published in partnership with the National Science Teachers Association. Engaging all students where disciplines converge is key to enabling students to gain important conceptual understanding, as well for them to explore solving some of the grand challenges for our planet. In our rapidly changing world, there is a need to transform educational experiences to reflect our current reality and the needs of the future. Thank you, and I look forward to our discussion today.
Am I up yet?
Yes, Dr. Merde, it's
Okay. Oh, there's there. All right, now comes the picture. So as with the two prior panelists, I am excited about what this panel might be able to address and the consequences of it. Some background on myself, and this becomes important as you will see later. I'm an Army brat. I'm a product of the Judea schools that was referred to. Grew up in physics, but then spent 40 years working in a chemistry division at the Naval Research Laboratory. So in contrast to the prior two panelists, my role has been more in the generation of that new science knowledge and the challenges associated with how one can integrate it into practice of research. That led in part to the development with NSF of the National Nanotechnology Initiative. And I was privileged to be first director of the National Nanotechnology Coordination Office. The nanoscale is extremely important because at that level, essentially all of the various sciences become intermixed. Because of that, there were a number of convergence and education workshops that NSF funded that I was privileged to organize. So they are listed there, and there are reports on each of these. Unfortunately, they didn't have pretty covers like you've seen from the prior two speakers. And beyond that, there was also the challenge as we began to look at convergence to address some of the oversight perspectives of it. So in particular, there was one article in Springer on the norms and standards of learning as it addresses convergence. So as with the others, look forward to this session.
Thank you, Dr. Merde. And last but not least, we have Ms. Tricia Shelton.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I'm Trish Shelton. I'm very grateful and excited and honored to be part of the panel today. I was a science teacher in middle school and high school classrooms for just under 2.5 decades before coming to the National Science Teaching Association, where I currently serve educators and education as the Chief Learning Officer. NSTA is the largest science teaching association in the United States. We have around 40,000 members and a reach outside of that of hundreds of thousands of educators throughout the US and even internationally. My background, one of the big things we're known for is we have conferences that bring in thousands of educators and convene them. I also wanted to share a lot of intersections in our own strategic plan. I was excited to read the strategic plan on which this web seminar is also based. And those big buckets are diversity, equity, and inclusion, advocacy, community, and then professional learning, which includes our support to educators with high quality instructional materials and resources for the classroom, as well as professional learning. And I think there we go. In just a second, this is our one of our sense-making symbols, and that's a term that really describes the contemporary research-based practices in the classroom that center equity and support our vision and mission to provide high quality resources for teachers to really target the science for all vision that we have. And so I'm going to speak today through a practitioner lens, and I'm going to be answering the questions and potentially referring to the sense-making compilation that you see here in this symbol. That is a combination of phenomena of honoring, surfacing, letting student ideas drive dialogue and learning in the classroom, the practices of STEM, and then we are a science organization, so science ideas is here, but I'm going to push that envelope a little bit in this convergence discussion today. And I believe that there were also several links that were dropped into the chat that really describe NSTA's work on the future of STEM and how that may intersect with our conversation today. So I'm excited for the panel. Thank you.
Thank you again, Mr. Comer, Dr. Johnson, and Dr. Murday, and Ms. Shelton for your introductions. You're not off the hook yet. We got some questions for you to get your insights and perspectives. You know, certainly appreciate you all for graciously sharing your time and expertise today. So I thought we'd start with Dr. Carla Johnson with this question, and then I'll just go around. What does convergence education mean, and why is it important to K-12 education?
Okay, thank you, Louis. When I think about convergence education, for me, it's an integrated or transdisciplinary approach where participants will be engaged in a driving problem or a challenge, solving the challenge. Students experience learning in the way that they will encounter it in the real world. So that's much different than probably the way most of us experience K-12 education, not isolated in boxes for content areas. Convergence education plays a critical role in K-12 education as it provides students with multiple opportunities to apply the knowledge and skills they're learning in the context of the real world. And why this is important is they're building conceptual understanding along the way of the important concepts that they're learning about. And also, importantly for educators, they're growing their retention of the learning considerably along the way. And that's one of the things that we find in K-12 education when you have students, particularly from underserved and underrepresented backgrounds. A lot of times they don't have that background experience or frame of reference to really attach all this new learning to. So the beautiful thing about convergence education and using problem-based learning and other pedagogical strategies is it helps them to build that foundation to really go in and attach their learning to.
Thank you, Carla. Trish, do you have anything to add to that question?
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm going to build off what Carla said and talk about a few things that stood out to me in the convergence report at the beginning. And one of those things was that the disciplines themselves that would be involved in this transdisciplinary learning, that deep understanding of those disciplines is foundational for the transdisciplinary learning to occur. Because the one piece that I think is really important that we talk about a lot is that contemporary approaches like this are really flipping STEM education, teaching, and learning on its head in lots of ways. And anytime you have that kind of flipping something on its head, that change really disrupts and can throw, especially educators that have been in the classroom for a long time, a little bit off balance, and there's that recalibration time. And so I think that being able to say that to accomplish successfully transdisciplinary learning, you need deep understanding of all of the disciplines, that is an important communication to those educators. But the other piece that I think makes it magic that I would add is that this approach is based in this need for education to be compelling to all students, especially those that have been traditionally underserved and marginalized in STEM education. And ways that can happen that are highlighted in the report are through local phenomena and problems, phenomena that we say are societally pressing, and the way it's mentioned in the report is socio-scientific phenomena, and problems that are rooted in students' cultural and linguistic experiences that promote that equity. And so that rising up of the student voice, of their experiences, of the assets that they bring into learning is such a beautiful thing. And there is tremendous research in the last 10 years to support that. And I think that this approach brings all of those things together around these complex phenomena that is really the future of STEM in K-16 and beyond. So that's what I would add. Thanks.
Thank you, Trish. Michael, your thoughts on this question?
Sure. There's not too much to add to what's already been said, but just a couple of things I think is that transcends not just the middle school and the upper high school and beyond, but really even beginning in the lower elementary schools. It's helping students, I think, to see the relevance of what they're learning. As we know, technology today affords students the opportunity to have knowledge or information at the immediate access. You know, it doesn't take anything to know. What they lack, I think, sometimes is the knowledge context of what they're learning and how to make use of it. You know, it reminds me of that quote about knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. You know, the wisdom is not putting it in a fruit salad. And I think that idea there is that convergence education gives us that opportunity to establish wisdom and make learning more relevant. It's not the recalling of facts and figures, but it's really about making its application. And I think moving from just the STEM realm of the 4 disciplines into a broader aspect of convergence, where we think of the social implications and the social sciences tied to it, the writing, the history, the connection between our cultures, I think is important for students. And then the ability, I think, to localize problems, that it's not just global problems, but students can look at it from their own neighborhood. What is the problem I'm involved in? What do I have to deal with? And then how are ways that I can solve it? So to me, that's really the crux to it.
Thank you, Michael. And Jim, anything else to add with that question?
I would go back and try to put a little bit of perspective. We've got this convergence report, and that to some extent can come across as something that is new and different and important. And in fact, it is. But convergence is something that has gone on continuously in the education over millennia. So what we're in effect doing is updating the process. And it was alluded, our earlier speakers talked at the high school level, where basically people go through a general science, a biology, a chemistry, and a physics course, right? That's the sequence. And I think I would challenge our greater audience, would this be the way you should teach science, or should we do something more like what English does, where you converge the various topics? You don't teach grammar in 1 year and handwriting in a 2nd year and composition in a 3rd year. We know inherently in ourselves that this is a stupid thing to do, right? You don't learn best that way. So if we look at the sciences, and let me take biology as a key example. When I took biology, and I look to be probably the oldest of the group here, my biology course was a taxonomy course. They taught us the names of things. At my final exam, one of the questions, I had to put my hand in a bag, feel a bone, and identify what that bone was. It was a naming exercise. When my son took his biology course, the first month of that biology course was in fact organic chemistry. Because, right, we're still buttonholed with general science, biology, chemistry, then physics. But you couldn't do modern biology without knowing something about organic chemistry. There had to be a convergence. And Tricia mentioned a key problem, and that is, how do we get teachers who are skilled across these various disciplines? And so one thought to throw out for people to chew on and critique is, why don't we shift high school education in particular to a convergent approach, and we have science and engineering 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? In each of those tracks, we have chemistry and physics and biology and medicine and engineering. And those tracks then get more sophisticated as you go up from 1, 2, 3, 4. And what we might be able to do to help solve the educator problem is to say, all right, we have people who know biology, who know chemistry, know physics. So instead of trying to train a new teacher cadre that is an expert in all of these, why don't we take our existing cadre and say, all right, the biology teacher will teach for a month in each of those 4 years. The physics teacher will teach a month in each of those 4 years. That way we can bridge our present state of expertise into the next generation. Okay, I'm taking too long. You got me on a soapbox.
No, I appreciate your thoughts there, Jim. Certainly you brought something up that I think we all agree that some, convergence or transdisciplinary learning in some way has probably been happening, and there's been some best practices. We just haven't called it as such, or it's always been under the guise of the broader STEM education. So, okay, I'm gonna go on to the next question, but this one will start with Michael. And before I state the question, I want to reiterate again to our attendees, please feel free to type in any questions that you may have in the Q&A portion of this webinar. So, Michael, and of course, I'll pivot to the other panelists as well. Convergence education frequently incorporates other established and promising practices such as problem-based learning or applied learning. What distinguishes convergence education from these other practices and approaches, and what are the similarities?
Well, I think that the similarities to it are the idea of pulling together the different disciplines, that helping students to see the relevance and the need for what they're doing. I think the convergence education provides that opportunity to begin to think about the problem approach, as Jim had just mentioned, the idea of the high school, looking at that instead of being segmented into individual classes where I go from every 40 minutes into a different room for a different subject, is how can I blend that learning and make it applicable across the day as opposed to individual time periods. And I think if we went back and looked at the primary classroom where their day is truly integrated, perhaps the kindergarten teacher really has a good idea about how we should be teaching in high school and college, perhaps a much more integrated and connected approach. I think the idea, the convergence is really that idea of pulling together problems, using students' needs and what's relevant to them in their own community, and helping to be more inclusive for everyone to feel that they're part of the education, the learning that's happening in the classroom.
Thank you, Michael. Tricia, your thoughts on this question?
Sure, I'm gonna piggyback off of what Dr. Murde started with. Before I retired from teaching, our freshman class was an integrated approach. It had all of the disciplines, and we did structure our class around the way that you said, wouldn't that be a great experiment? And I share that because coincidentally, the teaching channel came in and filmed a lesson in that class. And one of the most interesting pieces of that video is the student speaking to what that kind of integrated approach, what it meant to them, what I'll say multidisciplinary, towards integrated approach. And so one of the students says, I never imagined that a marble rolling down a track like in a Rube Goldberg could be analogous to what's going on in a complex ecosystem. And then he spoke more about how that really moved his thinking and his deep understanding of the multiple disciplines and translating it to what he saw in the world phenomena. And I think that what takes it one step further in transdisciplinary is, I agree with Dr. Comer, is that student voice and that agency in that. And I'll push it one step further that I absolutely love the report and the ice cream analogy. So if you haven't been in there, like what these words I'm speaking to really help me. But in the examples, it talks about students along with their teacher co-creating the direction that they're going, like really having the students as co-constructors of the questions and the problems to pick to address in this approach. And I think that is that next step, I know at our organization, for how we support teachers with that, and which might feel a little bit like giving up that control, but really letting students drive. And then what are the things that we can help teachers prepare? Because if the students are really driving and the problems are local to communities, as a national organization, we can't do that in all of those individual local communities. But what we could do is help with a larger approach into how do you pull in engineering, the engineering design, pedagogy, and how do you surface students' questions and crowdsource them into a direction that everybody feels that they were a part of that trajectory. Those types of pedagogy and practice things are more universal, and we can support teachers in that way. And then that opens up the door to the local problems and phenomena, and teachers and students really being in the driver's seat for the learning, which I think is really exciting.
Thank you, Trish. Going over to Jim, do you have any thoughts on this question?
Yes, I would reach out to some of the comments that were made earlier and include the non-science, non-engineering disciplines as an important component of this. In particular, it was alluded or mentioned that one of the focuses tends now to be to address societal problems. How does an upcoming student know how to understand a societal problem without knowing something about a historical perspective, without understanding something about how people interact with each other? So it's not only just the sciences where we need the convergence, we need to pull in the non-science disciplines as well. And if you can do that, then I think you can even motivate the science aspects of it. One of the reasons that I became a scientist was a recognition that if you did solve some of the problems of the world, you were providing a building block, cornerstones that grew. It wasn't something that you did today, and then you had to do exactly the same thing the next day, right? For instance, farming, you grow food. Next day, you grow food. Now, clearly, those professions are very important. We can't do without them. But the beauty of science and engineering, if we can get people to appreciate it, is that you start to build foundations of knowledge and understanding and problem solving that allows you to make the world significantly different. And so you become one of those giants upon which future people can stand on your shoulders. This is something that makes the science and engineering disciplines, I think, very unique.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Murday. And lastly, Dr. Johnson, anything else to add with that question?
Sure. Yeah, my thoughts have kind of morphed as I listened to the other panelists. And I think the biggest thing, just because I'm getting older too, and it's hard for me to retain knowledge like I used to, my thoughts. I'm gonna add to the comment about the non-science disciplines, and I will tell you that the consideration with the integrated STEM approach, the non-STEM disciplines are just as important as the STEM disciplines. And a couple of examples of that: social studies, English language arts, thinking about how in the world could we solve the problems of the world without understanding the context of the world that we live within and having the ability to communicate effectively. So it's absolutely critical to have the transdisciplinary approach within Convergence, even to really focus on that. But when I think about, going back to your question, Louis, problem-based learning, the biggest difference I see, problem-based learning can happen within one content area. And when I was a classroom teacher, I used it within science quite a bit. When 9/11 happened, we dropped everything we were doing and did a PBL on bioterrorism. It was a lot of fun. But Convergence is different in that there's a transdisciplinary approach to the organization of the content. So if you think about, if we go to think about implementing convergence education within formal schools versus out of school, that could be accomplished at a classroom level, a teacher level, or even I've seen this happen at an entire school level. And so that's where it's different. I think about PBL and other things as the pedagogy. I think about Convergence as really more of the instructional organization of the curricular topics that teachers or educators deliver.
Thank you, Carla. And just a reminder to our panelists, we've got about, I want to get to this next question and get everyone's thoughts, but I want to be mindful for the next roundtable. We've got about 7 or 8 minutes left. So just be mindful on your time and response for this last question. And I'm going to put these two questions together. In your opinion, do we have enough research or data to scale this pedagogical practice more broadly? And what is needed to move forward in convergence education? I'll start with Trish.
Thanks, Louis. So I'm going to speak more to the second question, what is needed, and also add, I appreciate all of the additions of humanities and what Dr. Johnson and Dr. Murday just spoke to. I'd like to add computational thinking, computer science, data science, those disciplines to that mix as well. And one of the links I shared is some work that we've been doing to convene experts and provide resources for the classroom to support teachers to do that. And one of the things we hear a lot that is a barrier towards that, since that type of integration, a integrated approach is very different, is professional learning, time, and high quality examples of lessons. And so those would be the 3 things that I will surface that teachers indicate that they need to do something that they feel is a new way of thinking or organizing instruction. I really liked what you just said, Dr. Johnson, and integrate that pedagogy with. So time, high quality materials, professional learning support that's ongoing.
Thank you, Ms. Shelton. And Dr. Murday, I remember Jorge and I, when we spoke with you a few years ago about your workshop on convergence, and I remember you mentioning to us that you had wished one of the topics you had talk more about was how to incorporate computational thinking into Convergence. So I'd be especially interested your thoughts on this question.
Yeah, there is an area, as we can all appreciate, there have been such dramatic changes over our lifetime. And that has posed a couple of challenges. One is, how do you build this new technology so you have people understand it? And I don't know about the rest of you, but I still have to go to my children to understand how to use my iPhone. So how do we get people more knowledgeable to these new technologies that are coming online? The second is, how do we take it and make use of those technologies as a way of helping the convergence process, right? Because if in fact we can get information technologies sophisticated enough, they can be a really important aid to the teacher. So the teacher themselves might not have to be as deep into their traditional disciplines of biology and chemistry and physics, because the teaching aid may have that depth to it. The teacher would just have to understand how to use this new resource to make best use of it.
Thank you. Dr. Johnson, anything to add?
Yeah, I could talk for a day or two about this. There's a growing body of research that clearly supports the use of integrated STEM approaches in K-12. So I'll just give you a snapshot. I actually posted a link to a paper in the chat that might be of interest to people. So we did a recent study examining the race to the top STEM investments in the state of Tennessee that revealed that students who attended all 4 years at a magnet urban high school that had an integrated STEM approach, which is very much like what we're talking about with Convergence. The students at this school they chose the school only because of interest, not because of academic achievement, and were selected by lottery. They outperformed the other 14 schools in that greater it's Chattanooga, Tennessee area on the ACT, and not only the overall composite score, but also mathematics and reading. And so that's just one snapshot of a study that's really powerful. If anyone's interested in looking at a school that's able to achieve this now, it's the STEM School Chattanooga. I can't say enough good words about that. But I think as far as moving forward on convergence education, like what we need to really think about is really having more emphasis in academic content standards, more professional development opportunities for educators, rethinking teacher education, and also probably most importantly, tools and resources. Teachers, believe it or not, they are doing God's work in the classroom, although don't let me go with religion on us here, but they desperately want to do the right thing. They sometimes don't have the time or the resources to do it. So focusing there would be great.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. And Mr. Cohen.
I'll just end on that note, because I think that's truly the part of it is in the work that we did in the research for our books, is that some of the best schools that were doing work in transdisciplinary instruction, their units of study were not one and done. Is that they went back and they looked at the unit at the start of the next year. They made changes based on the students that they had, and it was a continuous improvement model that they implemented within their school. Killip School in Arizona, I think, is a good example of that, where they took an underperforming school and made it superb, and that they worked with their students, their parents, the community to pull it all together. And I think that kind of research is really what we're looking for, is can we have more of those case studies, more of those examples of what's working and how teachers can pull together to be successful, because that's really in the end what we want are the students to succeed, not on a test, but on their application of their understanding in their chosen field or career, or the job that they choose as they become an adult.
Thank you. I believe that wraps up our roundtable. So Dr. Johnson, Ms. Shelton, Dr. Murday, Mr. Comer, it's been an honor to facilitate this panel. Thank you for sharing your expertise and your insights on this very important topic.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
You.
Dr. Valdez, I think I'm okay.
Okay, thank you, Louis, and thank you, panelists. That was, oh my God, I took so many notes here. I was trying to write everything down. Very insightful, very enlightening, and thank you for all of the leadership and work that has preceded our report and our work in the interagency working groups on convergence education. I was just so enthralled with the possibilities and for our children today and in the future. And so we're going to shift gears a little bit and talk about what this looks like, right? Theory, practice, what this looks like in the field from a practitioner standpoint. And so we have, once again, an all-star lineup of practitioners who are taking convergence education to the next level. And so our first speaker is Ms. Catherine Owens, who is a STEM innovation and entrepreneurship teacher, innovation education strategist and developer, and more. So I'm going to kick off Catherine's section with a question. And the question is, can you help us to understand a little bit more about what attracted you to incorporating the convergence approach into your work and what you see as incentives in your instructional practice?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jorge. Do you want me to start with that or do go into my talk that includes that?
Yes, go as planned. Thank you.
Okay, great. Sounds great. All right. So I am very excited to be here today and to showcase what I do in the classroom. And my umbrella that I teach is a STEM class, and I blend in invention and entrepreneurship. You can move to the next slide. So to answer Jorge's question, this is a little bit about my story and how and why I came to teach convergence education. So originally I wanted to be a botanist, and I spent a year in a lab measuring a tiny little flower called and after a year of that, I was like, no, I am not going to be a researcher. And the only other thing I could think of that I could do was to be a teacher. And that was definitely out. I was done with school. So there's the irony there. So I went into the consumer product industry. I had a very successful career there. But what I did discover when I was out in the working world was that everything was connected. And I was so excited about this. And I was like, why didn't I learn it this way? Everything is making sense now. And I also discovered a lot of my success I could attribute to various jobs that I had held throughout high school and in college, and thought, how could we integrate the experiences I had gotten in jobs and in the workforce into school? And I also loved the idea that I was now making change when I was in the working world. And so much of my had been about learning information and all this input, and then I would study for the test. I just felt like I wasn't making much of a difference. And the other thing I discovered was, oh my gosh, I love to learn. Never realized that. So you can go to the next slide. So I decided I wanted to switch careers, and I went into education with the idea that I wanted to innovate education to be real, relevant, exciting, and impactful. And I knew to do this, I would need the subject matters to be integrated, and I would need the content that was being taught to be applied at every step to the real world so I could understand why it was important. Next slide. So when I became an educator, I knew the most important thing I needed to do was not just all my convergence ideas, because at that time that didn't exist, but I did know the role of a teacher is to prepare students for the future. Next slide. And it's hard to prepare students for the future when you don't know what the future holds. And I know some of the other people have spoken to that. Globalization is happening, artificial intelligence, technologies are advancing. So how do you prepare students for that future that you don't know what it looks like? And on the next slide, there's this wonderful chart that I pulled from the Committee of Economic Development that states the competencies that employers are seeking but have trouble finding in applicants, just what people are looking for in the workforce. And I circled in that red circle the creativity and innovation, STEM skills, critical thinking, written communication, problem solving. I was like, I got this. We can make this, we can fill this gap. And on the next page, I'll show you how I did that. So what I wanted to do was to build a pipeline of STEM innovation and entrepreneurship literacy through Convergence education. So on the next slide, sorry, I blow through these slides quickly. So this is what it looks like in my classroom. Every day, the students have some sort of hands-on project or a lab. They learn in a multimodal instruction, so discussions, demos, videos. And then I bring in speakers, and I bring in speakers to highlight diversity in STEM, to highlight jobs that are utilizing STEM, that their teachers are wonderful, researchers are wonderful in the labs. There's a whole world, and I want them to see that, and I want those speakers to bring the passion. And then we go on study trips, and we don't go to museums, we go to the utilities a place. And this is a picture of Verizon, our telecommunications company in our area, and they're explaining to the students how they utilize magnets and circuits and all sorts of different things, and the difference between copper and fiber optics. And these are all the things and the concepts that we're pulling from the next gen science standards, but now we're seeing it in practice. So on the next slide, so this is us synthesizing concepts together and seeing the application of an idea. So say we're learning about magnets, and we're learning about their attract and repel forces. Learning that alongside learning, how did people discover that? What did they do with it? What things in our life are driven or utilize magnets? And trying to bring in that convergence of history and bringing invention into it as well. What are inventions all throughout history that are using magnets? And then pushing the students to look at problems in our society, moving people quickly, and being more globalized. All of that, and figuring a way that students can see the maglev and how that is now with electromagnets, how magnets are all interconnected. So just getting a really robust understanding of the forces. The next slide. And so we have hands-on projects. And on the next slide, we have speakers that come in. And then on the next slide, we have places that we go. And I'll just slow down for 1 second to show the students are standing over raw sewage. And some kids are very excited to go. Some are like, please, Mrs. Owens, no. But this is part of our water unit, and really seeing and understanding how our systems work. Another picture is a student in front of a green screen. That's part of our weather unit, and looking at meteorology and blending it in with broadcast and film and technology. And then on the next slide, I'll explain that all that information is information coming in. So students are learning and growing and they're working with it, but I also want to get that output, that needed ability to output information, which is on the next slide. And then from there, I do that on the next slide by thinking about how learning is important and these different stages of learning. So a lot of people are familiar with Bloom's taxonomy, and you're trying to get to that pinnacle at the top, the create, and that's when you really understand the concept and you're putting things out there. So how do we do that? And I believe that invention education is a wonderful vehicle to do that. So I have students come up with ideas using the STEM concepts we're learning and pulling in their life experiences. Next slide. Great. And then we make inventions. And then on the next slide, you'll see my students are also coming up with intellectual property. So bringing in language arts, bringing in some art as well, and being able to showcase and explain their ideas. What I really love about this picture, and I realize right here, if you see, a lot of these images are definitely the recycling that I have brought in. They're basically trash that we've made into something new and exciting. You can also, of course, bring in CAD and 3D print things. It just depends on how much time, the age of the students, what you're trying to get to. So these are just examples of very low budget ways to bring an invention. And the invention in the center that has the netting, that came from cherry tomatoes from my trash. And those students made that netting into a hair remover that goes onto a hairbrush, and they added some ties. And that invention actually took them all the way to a large competition in Michigan. So, it's the ideas behind it and the convergence of thoughts. And on the next slide, you'll see how we then put some of our inventions in some grades into advertisements. Again, bringing in that language arts, the ability to talk to their consumer. And I'll let you hear a little bit from one of my students to see an example.
ever woken up like this? Or maybe like this? Well, I have a solution. The security blanket is a blanket with 4 magnets, 1 in each corner. Simply take the 4 custom magnets and place 1 underneath each corner of the mattress cover. Then line up the magnets in the blanket with the ones underneath the mattress cover, and voila! No matter how much you toss and turn during the night, or if you're having the most horrible and scary nightmare ever, or if you're having the best dream ever, your sheets will not budge a bit. Buy your security blanket today in one of 3 sizes, twin, queen, and king, for as low as $19.99 at your local Bed Bath & Beyond store.
So that's just an example of one of the many things that we do with Invention Education. And on the next slide, you'll see that I blend in with Invention Education entrepreneurial thinking. So I bring in speakers who are entrepreneurs and are utilizing STEM concepts that we're learning. Next slide, please. And we are learning business basics. So whether I'm teaching a first grader or a middle schooler, or you could be teaching a high schooler, we're learning about target markets. What's the cost versus the pricing? These simple concepts can be brought down to a very tangible level for students and really connects them to the real world learning. And on the next slide, you'll see an example of how we do that. We do that as a class. We come up with ideas. This example right here is our stars jars, and it had to do with water. And then on the next page, you'll see that we then make the product, and there's a whole thing with collaboration, etc. The next slide. Then we sell it, we market it, we learn about money, and there's a lot of math in there, and again, language arts. Next slide, please. And then all the things that we're selling go to support a local, but a charity of the student's choice. So in one case, we did water, and we were able to fund a well in South Sudan. And that was really meaningful for the students to see that they were making positive change in the world. Next slide. And we've won some awards, whether they're local or regional or national. And then the next slide. I blow through them quickly. So this is an example of how I use a Convergence education. And I really believe that it supports foundational knowledge and it synthesizes the content. Students learn that critical thinking and other skills. It fosters 20% curiosity and creativity, and it allows students to practice social and environmental responsibility at an early age. And we celebrate diversity. I didn't talk as much about diversity that we pull into the classroom, and it also showcases career pathways. So on the next slide, I really do believe that Convergence education is preparing students for their future. It's real, it's relevant, it's impactful, and it's a lot of fun. So thank you so very much for having me, and I will send you off to our next wonderful speaker.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Our next speaker is one of my colleagues at the United States Patent and Trademark Office, Mr. Reginald Duncan. And I'm going to start off with the question to kick off your section, Reggie, is can you briefly describe some of the benefits and outcomes of the convergence approach for students as well as educators?
Absolutely. I would say that one of the biggest benefits that I've noticed on my journey to convergence with my students is definitely the buy-in. The engagement level has increased dramatically, and as well as just certain anxieties, right? So I have students often who have traumas from the past. They have past math anxieties who I noticed when they are working with mathematics in a less stressful environment or an environment where they're unable to differentiate between the two, you kind of sneak it in. All of a sudden, they do have this ability that they think only certain individuals in our population are blessed with, right? So I see this confidence rise as well as some of the anxieties decrease as we integrate many of these disciplines together as we work to solve problems. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and start off, if that's okay, Dr. V. So I am, yes, I'm an education program specialist in the Office of Education Outreach at the United States Patent and Trademark Office. I taught 5th grade mathematics and science for 14 years, very recently transitioned out of the classroom, but I'm going to share with you just some of our journey on our path towards convergence. So this picture, next slide, yeah, there we go. This picture here, I think, is a really great representation of how a lot of our students view school and a lot of our educators have viewed school. This really siloed approach to learning. And I want to really speak to Dr. Murday's point earlier about how absurd this kind of is, right? So in my classroom, I probably hear this at least every other day, or sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. Mr. D, isn't math time yet? Or, you know, they'll try to stop me. And Mr. D, it's science time, which kind of breaks my heart a little bit. But I think that often elementary students, they are taught to view these subjects as independent of one another, right? Only taught in specified blocks of time, which is really not conducive to them solving deep, complex socio-scientific problems or complex problems in the world around them. So for example, there was a time where I kind of really honestly just got kind of tired of it. So I told the students, fine, I don't want to hear you all mention anything about mathematics as you all are working on your terrarium projects, which I already knew was going to be impossible because they were recording their observations and they were supposed to be working with their charts. And I told them, I don't want to see any line plots. I don't want to see bar graphs. I don't want to hear any reference to numbers whatsoever. And as Dr. Murday pointed out earlier, they very quickly realized, well, that's just ridiculous and that doesn't make sense. Next slide. So I use that to also help even educators look at the way we view our teaching for our students, right? So when we think about ways that we can leverage established practices that we already have within many of our schools. If you are like many people, I'm sure on this call or on this webinar, you're probably thinking to yourself, you know, I'm not very familiar with the research, or I just now learned what the word convergence education even meant. But there's ways that we can leverage these practices that already take place within our classrooms. One thing I think about when I think about convergence education is that it is not a replacement, okay? Yes, it is one of the goals, but as the report even says, it's not the only optimal approach. It's used in concert with all levels of integration to be successful. So for example, even within a mathematics lesson, if I have a student who's struggling with the concepts of composite volume, it's really absurd for me to think that the student is going to be successful solving a complex problem dealing with composite volume if they already have struggles or they have gaps or deficiencies in prerequisite skills, such as calculating the volume of a rectangular prism, or even a student who struggles with concepts from 4th grade as to what area even is, finding area and building up to find volume, or even the inverse to find the depth. So I think a lot about Batman. I don't know if a lot of you all know the old school Batman with Adam West. The TV shows were something my brother and I were a little obsessed with when we were younger. But when I think about convergence education, it reminds me of that, because every episode ended the exact same way. You know, how is a dynamic duo going to escape this pit of acid or whatever was going on? And you only had to watch 2 or 3 episodes before you realize, well, I don't know exactly how they're going to get out of it, but I guarantee you it's something in that belt, right? You've watched enough, you realize there's something in Batman's tool belt that's going to allow him to solve whatever problem that he comes across. And that's often how I view convergence education, especially as I started becoming more familiar with the research and literature. It's not replacing other disciplines, right? You need to have these foundational skills before you can even solve these larger problems. But our job is to give you all the tools that you have in your tool belt to approach various situations that do exist and situations that we may not know are coming. So next slide. In my classroom with my students, we talk all the time about being problem solvers and seekers. I often tell them that even being a problem solver is a retroactive approach. I want them to constantly be looking at the world around them and finding ways that we can iterate and improve upon existing technologies or even procedures in the classroom. I challenge them every year. I say, hey, I've been teaching the same subjects every year. I need you all to help me be a better teacher I am than last year. I would often tell them about things that other students have given ideas of in the classroom, or more efficient ways for us to sharpen our pencils or come up with classroom procedures and things like that. But I always tell them, and this is a part of some PD that I took part in when I was actually doing PD in Dubai, and learning about thinking like innovators and working like entrepreneurs at all times, constantly looking for ways to solve problems in the world around us, which leads us to our next slide. During the pandemic, many of the students noticed that if you were obviously paying attention to your televisions or even gone to the grocery store, the big issue was the kids were asking, why is everyone taking all the toilet paper? Right? Like, what's going on? Why is all the sanitizer gone? Why don't people have masks? What's going on with that? And that's what they wanted to discuss a lot during class. And what happened, every district had a different model, but in our district, we did struggle a bit with trying to find ways to push out the lessons to the students throughout the day. And what was decided often in many schools was science is always the first to go. Science and social studies was pushed out asynchronously, which if you know me well enough, I'm sure Dr. V does, I wasn't having it. So I said, we need to find an approach where we can continue to teach these standards that these students are going to need to be successful, but in a package in a way with the time that we have available to us. So this is kind of how my convergence journey began. It began with the student interest, right, which is also part of the report. It's driven by a specific and compelling problem. So I posed the question that they asked me, I posed a question back to them, because often I tell my students, I'm going to answer your question with a question, and we all continue to learn and grow together. So I asked them, how can we increase the access of community resources and introduce products into the market to help solve the problem? Which led us into the next slide, their entrepreneur business projects. So in these projects, the students were given this challenge that you see here on your screen. And we were learning already about viral transmission. We were learning already about supply and demand and how it affects goods and services and the prices we pay. That was a huge topic of conversation amongst our students. Why are people willing to pay so much money for toilet paper, right? So as they were constructing their path towards solving this problem, some of the questions I posed to them was, how does your product or invention solve the problem? What makes your product innovative or unique? And also, they had to develop a plan. They had to explain to me, what's this plan that you all developed to introduce your invention or project into the market? So Dr. V, next slide, please. Now, you all a little bit luckier than I am, because at the time these resources didn't exist, but with the fine folks of the Office of Education, we'll continue to put together these resources to help our educators, especially in the vein of convergence education. We have a free educational resource called Equip HQ. It is aligned with standards for K through 12 students, introducing in the world of patents, trademarks, copyrights, and trade secrets, just helping helping learners understand the power that they have within themselves to solve complex problems. So next slide. A part of what we did, again, could have used these resources, but they are available to you now, is as the students were creating their products, they also learned about the basics IP. This is a lot of information I learned during my time at our National Summer Teachers Institute, prior to my time working at USPTO. And we were teaching them about the basics of trademarks, because we said, okay, whatever invention or product that you all come up with to solve this problem, we need to make sure that it's something that I'm able to immediately recognize this is your product, right? How do I know I'm going to get a certain level of quality from a product if I don't know who it is that's marketing or selling this product? So next slide, please. So we started off with this problem that we had, but along the way, we needed to acquire the skills that we needed to solve the problem, right? So we needed to learn how to analyze primary and secondary resources. We had a lot of conversations and lessons about using resources that are credible. We learned about virus transmission, resource scarcity, supply and demand. We brought in experts from the community, because this is super important. I know a lot of educators are listening to this and going, what are these, like super teachers or something? No, not at all. I would say that convergence is also in the report. It can be a bit messy, right? It's going to be. I told my students constantly, I am not a virologist. I'm not an epidemiologist, but that growth mindset expectation that we have for students is also transferred to us as educators, right? I had to grow along with them as we were learning to solve this specific problem. So I learned way more about the coronavirus than I expected as we were helping these students to learn to solve their own problems. Next slide. So the students, as they were creating their inventions, we didn't quite get to the making stage, which I really love that Catherine included in her presentation, but they were collaborating to create the design. And then obviously they applied some of these intellectual property basics by using their trademarks that they associated with their products. And then we had pitch parties. The students were able to pick the way that they were going to present their information to the class. Some students elected to do a commercial, which they actually got with the ELA teacher. They were learning already about dialogue. But again, these things don't happen. They happen very intentionally, right? So what I'm describing to you is more of a journey that took place that began during the pandemic, but it, of course, evolved as the school years went along. And then there was more of an intentional path. You know, it's no longer a, hey, you guys are learning about this, or I think you're learning about this. This was now a collaborative effort across disciplines with different teachers as we came up with this problem for the students. Next slide. So this is pulled directly from the report, but I wanted to end by sharing with you a really cool story. My administrator actually popped in for an observation on our virtual learning, and she was really confused. She says, what class is this? And I, of course, said, you know, what do you mean? And she says, well, I go into this breakout room and these kids appear to be doing math. They're adding and subtracting decimals and doing something for a menu or something. But I went into another group and they told me they were creating an invention to stop the coronavirus, which wasn't completely accurate, but it was really cool for me to see even the principal was unable to differentiate between what class, quote unquote, was going on at that time. But just a reminder, which is also in the report, is that this is not a replacement, right? A transdisciplinary approach is not a replacement for other disciplines, right? They are forming these strong foundational disciplines are very important and essential for us to build these building blocks for students to solve these larger problems. So I'm going to leave you with this. I had and I still have the coolest job in the world. I get to equip students of all types of backgrounds and ability levels with the ability to be Batman, to be Batgirl, Bat whoever, but not to be just Batman or Batgirl or whoever, but to be better, to put them in situations where they have the tools to solve not only the problems that we know exist in the world around us today, but problems that we don't even know are coming. So that is my brief spiel on unlocking your inner Batman, and I'm going to pass this on off to our next speaker.
Reggie, thank you so much for sharing those amazing and wonderful stories about convergence and what it looks like in the classroom. It's just really warms my heart and inspires me, and I hope the audience who is listening to you. And so thank you again so much. It's great to have you as my colleague, I call you my colleague in the Office of Education at the USPTO. Our next speaker is Dr. Tiana Woolard, who is a postdoctoral affiliate at Howard University. And Dr. Woolard, thank you for joining us today. And we'll start off by, can you tell us a little bit about how convergence education fits into some of your research efforts at Howard on focus on broadening participation of underrepresented students and teacher professional learning?
Absolutely. And thank you for the invitation to share some of the work that we've been doing over at Howard University. I think my short answer is going to be Howard University believes in a dedication to diversity. And I think that as we go through the presentation, we're going to see more specifically how we do that and how we're training our next generation of teachers, as well as our current teachers, to believe in and implement that model. So I will get started. Next slide. So a quick and brief introduction about myself. I am currently a postdoc affiliate and lead teacher in a university district research practice partnership. So I was actually born and raised in Prince George's County Public Schools in Prince George's County, Maryland, which is the second largest district in the state of Maryland, in a very, very diverse district. I have an undergraduate training in science, but after I graduated, I realized that my plans had changed. So I was going to substitute teach until I kind of find out what I wanted to do with my life. I got into the classroom and loved it. And I am actually still there as a middle school teacher in science. I went to Howard University and got my master's degree. I obtained national board certification as a secondary teacher, and then I obtained my doctorate in science education from Morgan. So I have an extensive amount of training, both in education and in science from HBCUs. And I still live in a predominantly diverse population that I teach and live in, and that I believe in giving back to. My focus is really equitable STEM learning when it comes to teachers. So that is the focus that we're going to be talking about, and the lens that I'm going to be using is how can we be more equal, more intentional, excuse me, as far as training our teachers, both pre-service teachers and then providing support to current teachers. So description of our research. Howard University is currently involved in a research practice partnership with NASA's survey project called Resource. And what Resource does is it explores specifically the moon right now for resources. So it identifies resources on the moon. It figures out how we can collect, identify, process, and store these resources, and then hopefully use them for further exploration in outer space. That's what we are doing. So our focus is on planetary science, but we're seeing how we can kind of use Resource's mission to increase interest in STEM and get more diverse students interested in planetary science. Next slide. So when it comes to NASA's strategic agenda for STEM engagement, they have kind of 3 goals: to contribute diverse students to participate in the work, to build authentic learning experiences, and then to attract students to STEM. So we kind of took the broadening participation goal using those 3 sub-goals, and then we combined them with Howard's model, or one of Howard's model for culturally relevant teaching, including engineering design tasks and storytelling. And we find that when you combine those 2, using stories and using engineering designs, you can increase engagement, increase exposure, specifically to subject matter experts that are from a diverse and underrepresented demographic. And we can also include different experiences that students can have. When we think about whether it's convergent education or just STEM education, a lot of times students can get exposure and experience via home. If their parents have the resources and the wherewithal to know to give those resources to their students, or they can participate in informal processes. But there are some students, specifically in urban areas, that may not get the experiences from home, that may not have the opportunity to participate in informal science experiences. So we wanted to make a model and conduct research where we can use the spaces that students kind of have to be as far as formal learning, and see how we can support new teachers, current teachers, in integrating STEM in a very transdisciplinary way. Next slide. So we start off with a story. There is research as far as what storytelling can do. Not only can stories help students make connections, but there are actual cognitive and metacognitive processes that are involved when individuals engage in stories. And stories can bring prominence of intersectionality of identities that comprise each individual. So one of the phases of our research was to identify subject matter experts, especially those who are of color or from underrepresented areas, and get their stories, and then use those stories to place them or introduce them or expose students to these SMEs that are in the field. There's a lot of research as far as STEM identity and being able to relate to people who look like you, and that can encourage students to actually engage and enter the STEM pipeline, especially for our minority students. So we start with stories. Now, PG County has done a very, very good job, if I may say so myself, at implementing phenomena-based learning. The state of Maryland has adopted the next generation science standards. And as we start to implement those standards, we have shifted our curriculum so that we're engaging in phenomena-based education. Now, if you look at our curriculum, a lot of the phenomena are they're kind of interesting things if science is your thing, but they may not be as interesting for students who may have a more minimal exposure to science. So when we can work with the curriculum of teachers that have to do these curriculum in school. We can sometimes substitute the phenomena that students are engaged to and use the phenomena of our stories that we've created and introduced, and use that as a phenomena to then grow the science lesson from. Next slide. So as we talk about this pathway to convergence, I think it's important to reiterate, even though it's been said before, that convergence education does not supplant traditional education. It just extends it, so that the students who are gaining this education are able to be more productive 21st century citizens. So while we're not getting rid of disciplinary teaching, convergence education actually requires disciplinary teaching, because you can't converge disciplines if you have no foundation of the discipline, right? If that makes sense. So we took our phenomena of our storytelling, and that phenomena was of a scientist, a material scientist, who initially, when she was young, was interested in cars and thought she might want to be like a mechanical engineer because she was interested in how those things work, specifically the insides of them. She actually got training to be a material scientist, and she worked on the cockpit of one of the space terrain vehicles that's actually used in space. So as we kind of use that as an introduction, it can go several different ways. We can address our 6th grade content of renewable and non-renewable resources. We can address our 7th grade standard of physical and chemical properties, which is the slide that you see on the screen, or we can go to the 8th grade content where it talks about synthetic materials and how humans can either affect the earth or the environment in a positive way or negative way based on those materials. So this is just an example. What you're seeing on your screen here is the disciplinary implementation of physical and chemical properties, or an example of what a teacher could use actually in their classroom. Next slide. So once we get that kind of foundation of physical and chemical properties, what they are, the teacher can go to the next level, and this is a sample of what an actual teacher can use. This is called a visual thinking strategy. So you give students a visual, and then you ask them questions, gain or solicit feedback from the visual. In this example, they not only go from physical and chemical properties, but this can be used in a 6th grade classroom where it talks about renewable, non-renewable resources, or even an 8th grade as far as synthetic materials, where it's integrating math. Well, what kind of percentage when it comes to recycling things, which part is natural versus unnatural, synthetic, and then having them develop graphs. Now, when it comes to multidisciplinary, this is very important, because as a teacher, you understand that while I do teach science, in science, I have to support math skills. I have to support RELA skills, or reading language arts skills, for my students. So I'm always thinking of activities that I can do while reinforcing the science, but reinforcing those other common core skills that they are going to see in different excerpts on the end of the year test, which is very important for teachers, as well as they continue on. Next slide. So from a multidisciplinary approach, we can then go to an interdisciplinary approach when we now are getting into our engineering design challenges. So for this particular engineering design challenge, the students are tasked with creating a nanopipe, where they have to build a pipe or a tube that can automatically separate things based on their physical properties. So not only do they have to build the pipe, they have to complete 2 iterations. They have to make a scientific claim as to which iteration is better, and then they have to use data to support their claim with evidence and reasoning from their investigation. So it's interdisciplinary because it's using a lot of different disciplines that they're all blending together to address this project. And again, an integration of project-based science in addition to the phenomena-based science that we started off the lesson with. Next slide. And then to further extend the lesson, we can start getting into the transdisciplinary space, where we talk about, now that we've seen and talked about the implications of space, the ways that we can use physical and chemical properties, how we can use properties based on, the properties of substances, how we can then make things with them and get into our synthetic materials that can be used and connected to natural, renewable, non-renewable resources. Then we have these other issues concerning resources just overall. And that can be resources within our community that are unevenly distributed. That can be resources in space as far as ownership and privatization. As we start having private companies now kind of explore space, how do we hold them accountable? How can we help them be responsible when they are in space when it comes to things like space junk and or broken or fallen satellites that may not make it back to the Earth? How do we then make sure that we're not only protecting the Earth and making the Earth, trying our best to make the Earth a better place, but also protecting space as we go about to explore it? So again, as we partner with Resource to not only bring their missions and their goals to teachers to let them know about what Resource and NASA is doing, but we're also trying to develop specific, concrete, and intentional resources that teachers can use within their classroom that are specifically aligned to their standards that they're using and that can be easily accessible and implemented in their current classrooms with little modification. Next slide. So the partnership between Howard and Resource is really focused on teacher professional learning, because when you can focus on teachers, then you can affect all the students in which they teach. The goals from the STEM Education Strategic Plan, as well as the report on Convergence Education, identify two major goals for teachers, specifically to increase their content knowledge. And a lot of times when you have either science teachers or math teachers, they may not have specific content knowledge when it comes to like space science, but participating in our professional development, they then increase their content knowledge and see how different disciplines are used to converge to then address these global problems like space exploration. And then we evolve their pedagogical skills so that they not only increase their science, increase their math, and increase space science, but they can also get skills on engineering design and how we can use math, use science in these engineering design platforms. So basically, we're trying to use workforce development to, one, affirm student and teacher self-confidence in engineering specifically and space science, and also build student and teacher STEM identity for how these disciplines can converge and be transdisciplinary. And we also want to acknowledge and respect diversity and strengths and capacities. So a lot of times when we talk about transdisciplinary, I think that the point that we want to bring up is, as a scientist, I know that I have a specific strength, a specific background, and something specific that I can bring to the table. But I also kind of know the limits of where my realm is. And one thing that we like to emphasize is when we talk about diversity, we know that different people have different strengths and different people have different things to offer. So as a scientist, I know that I need to reach out to a math person, or I may need to reach out to an engineering person, or even a space person to help me get to a higher level, to help me do the best job that I can. So in respecting diversity and strengths and capacities, we're able to address different teachers' needs and support them in different ways, and also convey that to the students in which they teach. Next slide. So our recommendations for implementation based on the pilot studies that we're doing, when it comes specifically for in-school use, Convergence Education can utilize transdisciplinary learning events or learning activities in either introductory or review lessons. To increase fidelity, you can provide templates, lessons, and sample activities like the ones that were shown in the presentation. But we want to make sure that they're locally structured to align to the district's mandated standards. And then we want to engage and encourage a sustainable community relationship with relevant stakeholders that can offer local exposure and experiences for students and teachers. Next slide. So in closing, I just want to leave with the quote: "It's also a duty of education to solve the contradictions of the current society that only focuses on competition and efficiency, and to build a future society that requires mutual coexistence and continuous development," specifically including those of us who are from diverse demographics who have something special, unique to offer. Last slide. If there are any questions, please make sure that you submit them in the Q&A, and I look forward to helping anyone out. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Willard. Thank you for sharing so much about your research work and bringing in this notion that everybody brings something unique and special to the table, and that's what makes the convergence education approach so powerful, not only in education, but out in the real world, because that's how innovations and things get created and brought to society. Thank you so much again, Dr. Willard. Our last speaker is Ms. Laura Atkinson, who is the Albert Einstein Distinguished Educator Fellow at the Department of Energy. And just to kick off her section, Laura, can you briefly share with us what attracted you to incorporating convergence into your work, and what do you see particularly as incentives for educators?
To answer Jorge, I would like to invite everyone that's a part of this webinar to stand up for just a second, shake it out, stretch a little, take a deep breath. So you've been sitting for a while, and I want you to maybe close your eyes and imagine yourself as a 7-year-old. Got it? What were your skills and your talents and your joys? Okay, now fast forward to 14. Now, same question. What were your skills and your talents and your joys and your curiosities? Now at 28. At 49. Maybe 77 or wiser. And how many of these talents and skills and curiosities have you brought with you to this day? Okay, you can open your eyes. That small exercise that took about 50 seconds is the basis of my answer, is that my incentive for convergence education is actually quite selfish. And that for the first minute of my talk, I didn't have the answers, you had the answers. And it is a hard-won lesson for a teacher to let go of who I am, to be the sole creator and author of the classroom. I've been teaching for 22 years in high school. I've been a math and physics and biomedical engineering and design teacher. I've also been running professional developments for my school and my state, and also for my nonprofit company. So the next slide. I want to tell you a story about how can we scale the Reggies, the Catherines, the Tianas, these wonderful educators that you all just heard from. So 8 years ago, I was asked by my administration to run a professional development that addressed 21st century skills, the C's, I call them. It was the critical thinking, collaboration, creativity, communication. Oh, and by the way, also introduced them to systems thinking, design thinking, coding, making, community partners, all of that. Additionally, the whole school where I taught was not only high school, it was junior kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. And the teachers that were going to come were from all subjects, all grades, and maybe even a couple of administrators. So as you can see, this is just a part of a picture of one of the years, and you can read who was there. Next slide. So we're gonna just turn off the week about how I kind of thought through things. We start off with systems thinking. Before you delve into any content or any kind of decision making, it's so useful to take a step back, maybe even 10 steps back, and look at the system in which you're operating. So we decided on Danella Meadows' research book and papers, and to go with the stock and flow diagrams. Stocks are elements of the system that are measurable, and flows serve to increase or decrease the stock. Every year, I start with student learning as the main stock. Then, if you come back and look at your diagram, I ask the teachers to locate a leverage point that will maximize student learning. For instance, a leverage point like a reinforcing feedback loop would be motivation. Motivation increases student learning, which would then increase motivation, which increases student learning, and going off an exponential rate. So some of the teacher examples, if you click again, also illustrate that it can be subject specific. It can also be anything you can start. So these actually address homelessness in Ashland, which is a town about 20 minutes north of Richmond, and also a bee population. So as you can see, this is relevant to all subjects in all disciplines. And of course, the mathematician in me loves that I'm forcing humanities teachers to think through equations and graphs. All right, next slide. Next up, we take that leverage point that they've identified and take them through a design thinking loop. So we've chosen the Stanford D School model and show them and take them through this human-centered loop of ideation and prototyping and feedback and testing. And what is powerful about this design thinking is that it is relevant to the community that the teachers are in. When the teachers take this to their classrooms, it becomes relevant to the students and the community and the classroom that they are in. So not only are they developing plans of actions and products and services, but they are making it specific to themselves, their community, which makes them actually really motivated to make things the best that they can be. Next slide. That was just day one. Day two starts off with local resources who can offer local answers to local issues. In Richmond, this looks like historical societies or nonprofits that are looking into refugee issues. The artists that we bring in, this one utilized the craft brewing scene that's exploded in Richmond. He takes bottle caps and makes huge pieces of art with them. He was a former mechanical engineer. And then we also bring in academics who can speak to wellness and computer language systems. In the afternoon, it's always nice to back up all these ideas and opinions and feelings with research. So I hand over the reins to librarian magicians who make LibGuides feel like a party, but then sober us all up with some copyright law. All right, next slide. The third day, we break out what we are lucky enough to have, makey-makeys and Spheros, Arduinos, and wearable technologies like lily pads. But then we also bring out toilet paper rolls and egg cartons and construction paper and cardboard and pom-poms and the hot glue. And it is day of teacher choice and roboticizing creations. Next slide. Then comes days 4 and 5. And here is where I completely let go. And from all of this chrysalis goop, all of these teachers from all these different grades and all these different subjects that are just kind of mushed together, I just see what happens after they have been introduced to all of these huge concepts. Things actually start to converge. Next slide. Here are just a few. It's been really hard. I've been running this professional development since 2015. By the way, I should say that the teachers, it happens over the course of a week in the summer. The teachers are given $600 for the week. This whole professional development is put on for $0. And I planned it with teaching, 3 preps and 4.5 classes. And I don't say that to brag, but I'm just saying what is possible within the constraints of our current system. So the outcomes just warm my heart. And I can't say that these are the best because there were so many to choose from. The picture in the top left were the result of a history teacher, an 11th grade history teacher who was renowned for her research skills, found a 4th grade teacher also in attendance. Their curriculum overlapped. This 4th grade teacher was a lawyer in her previous life. And they worked together to develop concepts that where their students, 4th graders and 11th graders, learned about and taught each other and created solutions for trade in the Americas. Another year, that big kind of Excel file below, a group of teachers realized that they taught the majority of the 11th grade students. This was chemistry, history, English, and then I taught biomedical engineering and design. So what the students had to do was mush together these ideas and these topics. And I want to reiterate something that the other speakers have said, is that this did not decrease the rigor or the expectations of our content for our students. What this did was enable them to actually apply what they were learning in different classes. Another whole level of this is that it elevated my learning and thinking. I love to learn as well. And so I was fortunate enough to have a planning period that aligned with a history teacher's class. And I got to go in and watch my colleague be a master of her subject and watch my students actually be in a setting other than my own classroom. I had students working on poetry in my biomedical design class, and I could go up to them and ask them about their analysis, and they were the masters then instead of me, which all came together in the end to produce a product of a report or a piece of art or a piece of poem that would communicate what the decision of the Manhattan Project, the decision of dropping the bombs in Hiroshima actually did to society and how it can inform our futures. The middle box says, as from an English teacher, I want to show the relationship between coding and writing, planning, vocabulary, syntax, and grammar. That was in 2016. And so I pulled that because I think it's pretty prescient to the chat GPT issues of today, which I promise did not write this talk. The picture on the top right, I want to address too, is a project of a 60-plus-year-old English teacher, seventh grade English teacher. She was pretty ornery. I think that all of us can kind of picture a teacher like that. But what she actually grabbed onto was a free program called Pixel Math, in which students can look at the individual pixels of a digital photograph and manipulate them, the red, green, and blue values, by actually using algebraic equations. So this English teacher, a seventh grade English teacher, was actually with the technology teacher and with the algebra teacher, was using algebra in her class while reading The Giver, a story about a character who gives color to the world. I know I'm running time short, but the Cells and Ethics podcast project brought together a biology and an English teacher who put together, of course, the biological concepts of tissues. And the question was, who owns your tissues, inspired by the story of Henrietta Lacks, but also mushed it together with the compelling storytelling aspect of the English composition class with the technology of podcasting in that program. The last one was that in my systems thinking lesson, students will act as ambassadors for various countries, and then debate about different research aspects that they found. And this was back in 2015. So if you can imagine, there has been, 8 years that have passed and gone on through here, and how relevant some of these things actually still are. All right, next slide. I know I'm coming to a close here, but what I have realized that is effective here is that teachers, because they feel ownership, because they are curious, and because they love to form communities, they actually come together, and this is a voluntary basis. They created rubrics for each other for these new skills and learnings, and they would use them in class and come back together in meetings. And these are teachers from grade school, from middle school, from upper school, from all these different subjects, just talking together. And it's fun to hear their joy of creativity. The last slide is the idea of convergence education and what we need for this to thrive. We cannot have it be dependent on the teachers that are at the school. To make it a culture, there has to be a way that all this interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary things are a way and then common in all the disciplines throughout all of the grades. So it's like if a factory is torn down, but the rationality which produced it is left standing, then that rationality will simply produce another factory. If a revolution destroys a government, but the systematic patterns of thought that produce that government are left intact, then those patterns will repeat themselves. And so I'm thankful that my school has continued to thrive in this manner without me there for this year in the Einstein Fellowship. And that is my presentation. Thank you.
Great, Laura. Thank you so much. So insightful. My God, your closing remark just reminds me of sort of the U.S. our Constitution and what we could, and the legacy that it leaves for us all. I want to bring back all the panelists. I know we're short on time, so I'm going to use Laura's approach in the beginning of this session by having the panelists close their eyes for a moment And I'm going to ask all of you this quick question. We have about 2 minutes, so we'll think about it. If you were able to visit a school or an educational setting 10 years from now, the future, what would you hope to see incorporated into instructional practice from Convergence education? We got less than a minute or so, so who wants to go first? Open your eyes.
I guess I can just give a real quick short answer that pertains to my talk. I would love to see a school full of superheroes and superheroines running around, right? Everybody is their own version of Batman, Batgirl, Bat whoever, right? I'd love to see classrooms where we walk in and it's you're unable to really figure out like what class is this, right? Because we think about the purpose of learning and what we're trying to equip our students with the skills to do and solve these problems that should be happening no matter what class they're in. But a lot of creativity and innovation, and you already knew that was coming from the USPTO guy. So
Thank you, Reggie. Other
I would
thoughts?
also,
Go
I'd
ahead,
also
Catherine.
share that I think that seeing joy, joyful learning is just wonderful. And, making sure that children are having a good time when they're learning, because when you're having fun, face it, that's what you remember. You usually remember the good stuff or it was really horrible. That's the bad stuff. But generally the just everyday stuff you forget. And when you really love something and you're having fun and you're discovering and you made something that is part of who you are and it becomes your own, then it's your story to tell. And you've incorporated that learning and no one can take that away.
I can go ahead. Well, for me, I would hope that in the next 10 years, we, one, have addressed our staffing issues. So much to the point that we can offer real science to all of our elementary students. Not just the ones in the magnet schools and, not just the ones in the tag programs, but to every elementary student, to get them in while they're young, to really tap into, support, and encourage that creativity, that natural proclivity to science, to engineering, and to questioning, and then support that all the way through. I love the idea that was mentioned before as having the science and engineering kind of step lessons, 1, 2, 3, 4 as you go up. And then starting that within the middle school, but having it available for all students. So I'm really big on equity and access and making sure that everybody has exposure and experiences that are equal and relevant.
My answer is super quick. It's the 1511 Raphael School of Athens. If you can picture it, it's just a group of great thinkers all together, and you don't know who's leading the discussion, and everybody is just all in. But also you just need to, clearly diversify all the people in that. But you don't know who's the teacher and who's the student, and just that merging of ideas and perspective sharing is something that I would hope to see.
Wow, you guys are so inspiring. We promised an all-star cast and we delivered an all-star cast. I want to thank all of you once again. And I'm going to prompt you to sharing your thoughts and to provide through the Mentimeter that you see here, any Convergence education practices that you want to let us know via this link. And once again, panelists, for me, it is a great honor and a great privilege to be a part of this amazing group of professionals, educators, and change leaders and thought leaders. So thank you again to everyone and to the audience. And I'll pass it over to Dr. Owens.
Yes, excellent panel. Thank you so much. So we will now proceed with the next session. We have a number of wonderful speakers who will be sharing the perspective and resources that they have from an agency perspective. And so we'll start off with featuring 3 speakers from the National Science Foundation. And Steve, I believe we'll be beginning with you.
Great, thank you. Hi, everyone. NSF has been promoting, supporting, and helping to expand convergence research and education really for decades. And for us, of course, the hallmarks of convergence include research that's driven by a specific and compelling problem and a very deep integration across disciplines. If you can go to the next slide. Convergence research at NSF is cultivated in three distinct ways, which I'm showing here kind of metaphorically as the growth stages of a fruit tree. Almost all of NSF's cross-cutting programs place a very high priority on convergence research, training, and education. And that's represented by the middle tree here, where the goal is to support activities that have already taken root and are really ready to take off. Once that investment in basic research bears fruit, NSF also supports convergence accelerators to accelerate solutions towards really tangible outcomes. But NSF also recognizes that for some scientific and societal challenges, convergence research is still very much in the sapling stage, where teams are still being formed and the training and education needs are just beginning to come into focus. Those projects are supported by NSF's growing convergence research program. But a common thread across all of these activities is a focus on convergence education. And for that, I'm going to turn things over to my colleague, Daniel.
Daniel, we may not have you via audio.
Yes, it looks like you're unmuted, but we can't hear you. Nope, still no sound. Nope.
Oh no, okay.
Oh wait, here we go, we're good. And we lost you.
Hello, trying again.
And we can hear you now.
Okay, all right.
Okay, there we go.
Sorry for the technical difficulties. Thanks, Nafisa and Steve. So I'm so grateful for the chance to talk to you all about some cutting edge convergence programs at the National Science Foundation that focus on graduate education. So I'm the lead program director for the NSF Research Traineeship Program and the Innovations in Graduate Education Program. And one of the reasons why I'm speaking with you today is that convergence education is at the core of the NRT, which fits the mold of what my colleague just described as an NSF cross-cutting program. So next slide, please. Okay, so the goals of the NRT are to advance cutting-edge convergent research in high national priority areas or themes, to produce diverse cohorts of STEM professionals with the additional professional skills they need for success in careers both within and outside academia, for example, in industry, government, and nonprofit sectors. And finally, to develop innovative approaches and knowledge that may result in transformative improvements in graduate education, both within the awardee institutions as well as across STEM fields more broadly. So next slide, please. So the key elements of every successful NRT include high convergence or interdisciplinarity in both research and training of graduate students, and integrated professional development that is designed to supplement and complement this research and training. Here, for example, we require professional development in three areas: communication, teamwork or team science, and ethics. And many projects expand to include additional areas such as entrepreneurship, leadership, or community engagement. This comprehensive model of graduate student training is captured in the figure to the right. So you might have heard of the T-shaped person or the T-shaped graduate student who combines the vertical depth of knowledge of a research master's or PhD degree, as well as the breadth of professional skills valued in any career. Many NRT trainees more aptly fall into a kind of comb-shaped model of graduate student training with multiple areas of disciplinary or domain expertise, as well as that breadth of knowledge and skills that will make them highly valued and effective in the 21st century workplace. All of this is designed to support two overarching goals upon which the success of these projects is ultimately measured. The first is institutional transformation through the sustainability and diffusion of what works in convergence education at the graduate level. And the second is inclusive workforce development. So with respect to inclusion and inclusivity, this is integral to every NRT. And as you can see at the top right quadrant of this slide, broadening participation strategies and tangible plans to integrate diversity into the education and training programs of the NRT comprise one of the review criteria on which every proposal will be evaluated. Next slide, please. So as an NSF cross-cutting program, every NSF Science Directorate is represented in the NRT overall, and an average of 3 NSF directorates are represented in every NRT project. Next slide. So the NRT began in 2014, and since then we have funded 148 projects to over 100 institutions across 43 states, as well as the District of Columbia and the US Virgin Islands. Overall, about 1 out of every 5 NRT awards have gone to institutions Carnegie classified as non-research 1, or quote unquote high research activity institutions, and we're seeking to invest even more in diverse types of research institutions. While Track 1 awards of $3 million over 5 years remain open to both R1 and non-R1 institutions, we recently introduced a Track 2 of $2 million over 5 years, which is limited to non-R1s who might propose projects on a slightly smaller scale. And the intention here is to expand the competitiveness pathway for more non-R1 institutions. A hallmark of Convergence is research driven by a specific or compelling problem. And in any given NRT, the research themes listed here might dovetail with thorny societal problems such as climate mitigation or sustainability or equity that can only be solved when disciplines converge. Though we designate priority themes here, we are always open to proposals that can demonstrate alignment with any priority themes of national importance. The next deadline for NRT proposals is September 6, 2023. So I invite you to explore the link. Oh, you can go on to the next slide. I invite you to explore the link at the bottom right of this slide, which will take you to a website where you can learn more about the range of previously funded NRT projects and the exciting convergence research and education models that are emerging. And the last slide, please. So finally, I'll just say a word about the Innovations in Graduate Education program. So whereas the NRT supports comprehensive STEM graduate convergence research and training, the IGE program supports testbed research studies that might identify cutting-edge, potentially transformative models of graduate education and professional development. The emphasis here is on research and the generation of knowledge about promising practices and innovative approaches to STEM career development. A number of IGE projects focus on interdisciplinarity and convergence education specifically. And I include a link to the new IGE Hub, which is a fantastic new resource to catalyze a community among researchers on innovation and graduate education. So the next deadline for IGE proposals is March 25th. And I just want to close by thanking you and inviting anyone interested in either the NRT or IGE programs to contact me or my fellow program officers to carry on the conversation. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this invitation. And my name is Tomasz Durakiewicz. I run the condensed matter physics program at the National Science Foundation. And I thought it appropriate to share with you a few thoughts about what does convergence mean in the world of quants? Quantum world, a very specific one that if we go to the next slide, you will see was developed about a century ago. This is a picture from 1927. You can recognize Uncle Albert sitting in the center and Marie Curie Skłodowska next to Lawrence. This is really the picture that captures the idea of convergence, maybe for the first time these people developed over the course of about 30 years a new fascinating language, very powerful language to describe what happens at the level of individual particles at the quantum level. But they worked in a convergent and collaborative way. They represent mostly physics, but also material sciences, mathematics, chemistry, perhaps the first impactful example of convergent behavior and collaboration in sciences. Next slide. Why do we care? Well, quantum is something that erupts really today. We see hyperbolic growth of interest, of industrial engagement, of fantastic research. Out of about 250 Nobel Prize winners supported by NSF, 31 are related to quantum information science and engineering. And we see today this original language developed a century ago being used for translation. We see first example of quantum technology. We see increasing number of patents, abstracts. Every second week, we have new breakthrough in research. And of course, there is a huge factor here that we need to consider, and that is a qualified workforce and education elements. We need to make sure that the fuel for this progress is available. And that fuel, the most important part of it, is human capital and the pool of talent. Next slide. And we can click a few times so we can go through the, yes, please. Let's go. Yeah, stop here. So the way we approach it at NSF is through 3 C's, we call it: convergence, community, collaboration. And you can see here in this picture on the left-hand side that what we use the Dirac notation for describing quantum superposition. You can also use it in a way to describe what we need in terms of workforce. We need a superposition of an engineer with mathematician, computer scientist, physicist, material researcher, chemist. We do not need a physicist. We need someone who knows physics, but also understands computer sciences and engineering a little bit. This is the nature of quantum information science and engineering. Convergence is its nature. And you can see here this, the braiding of different colors from physics, chemistry, astronomy, mathematics, materials, through all kinds of engineering, computer science, etc. That represents this beautiful entangled nature of quantum information science and engineering as a conglomerate of multiple disciplines that need to collaborate very, very closely to achieve success. Next slide shows an example on the research side. How is it important? Well, in the center of the slide, you see an idea of an instrument that we do not currently have. That's a topological quantum computer. We do not have one. In order to get there, in order to achieve that level of self-sustained and resistant to decoherence kind of quantum computing, a completely new kind, we need to have close collaboration of computer sciences providing software, mathematics providing algorithms, engineering providing devices, and materials research providing stable platforms to execute the operations needed here. The only way to get it is through convergence. So that's a great example of research convergence. Next slide shows a little more of our focus on education, and we approach it through the following important elements: lowering the barriers for entry, making sure that what we do is efficient. Inclusion is treated in education as opportunity to grow the available workforce. Good assessment of what works and what doesn't. Leverage when we work together in collaborative mode. And then in the center of it, of course, convergence, where again, the understanding that we need to train students from technicians all the way to PhD level, master's degrees, bachelor's, associate degrees, certificates, who represent a mix of different disciplines in their skill set. And of course, in order to get there, you have to start early, start at K-12 level, start with kids, with informal education as well. And we try to pursue all these avenues. Next slide shows how we integrate the convergent aspects of quantum information science and engineering with needs of broadening participation. This program was designed specifically to build capacity in quantum and broaden participation by enabling schools and institutions that currently do not have or have only small amount of research and education efforts in quantum to grow that effort. Last year, we had the first round of Expand QISC. We received 100 proposals. We funded 11 at the level of $22 million total. And we are looking at the next round coming up in April of this year. The new solicitation came out today. An important change in that solicitation is that now we are limiting the eligibility of lead institutions to non-R1 institutions to even make this argument of broadening participation stronger. And next slide shows a slightly different approach to convergence, where we look at converging the interests and needs of teachers, of government agencies, and industry. And that effort, Key Concepts for Future Quantum Information Science Learners, started as a community-driven effort to define the curriculum for K-12 in quantum. But then it quickly turned into something called Q12 Partnership, which is now operating under OSTP, under the NQI Act requirements through the coordination office in the White House. And that convergent effort really puts together industrial partners, all the big players from Intel and Google, Microsoft to many, many others, in touch and in contact with teachers while being coordinated with government agencies. And that effort really opens up a lot of possibilities and opportunities, especially for teachers. So that's a different flavor of convergence. And the last slide, if we can advance, shows yet another flavor of it. In this case, a convergent effort of a student, academic mentor, and industrial mentor working together in a triplet. And we have a program like that educated 78 triplets so far. It's still ongoing and involves a student and the academic mentor providing cutting-edge research, and the student joining the industrial lab, utilizing the available computer infrastructure, instrumentation, facilities to, over the period of about 2 years before graduation, learn the language of industry. The different parts here, academia, industry, government, speak different languages. And here, the convergent effort is focused really on making sure that they find a common language. And the student immediately after graduation and finalizing this program is very, very productive and hireable, which does not require additional training. All right, I will stop here. I hope you enjoyed this slightly different approach where we distinguish different kinds of convergence from research through education to career related, but also this kind involving different partners or types of partnerships that we are trying to build. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you so much. Heidi from the Smithsonian.
Thank you very much. And it's wonderful to be here today and have heard this fantastic presentation by all of you, but most recently NSF. And Tomas mentioned the need for K-12 education as before we get to these high-level educations, and I couldn't agree more, and it kind of brings me directly into what I'll be talking about today. I can go to the next slide. So I'm a curriculum developer with the Smithsonian Science Education Center. You may be familiar with the Smithsonian, our wonderful museums on the National Mall and some other locations as well. But we also have a huge amount of research that we do, and we have some education centers. And the Smithsonian Science Education Center is the only center at the Smithsonian that's really focused on formal primary and secondary education. So our mission is to really transform that K-12 education through science in collaboration with communities across the globe, which is a big mission and a very inspiring one. And specifically, I work on a project called Smithsonian Science for Global Goals. And we work with students in middle school and high school. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about that program today. You could go to the next slide. And I love this idea of convergence education because I think it starts with the idea of using those real world problems to drive learning. And I think that that's sort of how we all naturally approach learning. So I think it's such a incredibly rich and robust tool. And when we were starting to design our educational series, Smithsonian Science for Global Goals, what we decided is we wanted to use the UN Sustainability Development Goals as that learning. So if we could go to the next slide. Thank you. And you can hit it again. So I think about the Sustainable Development Goals as the world's most pressing problems. These are a series of 17 goals developed by the United Nations to say these are the things we think are the highest priority over between 2015 and 2030. And what that says to me is that's a real opportunity for students to engage in trying to solve problems and make progress on topics that are really relevant to them and their lives now and their future. And so we use these as sort of inspiration to develop guides around topics that we drop down from these. I can go to the next slide. Right now, we have already published 8 of these guides, and they range from sort of like mosquito-borne diseases to food, to COVID-19, to environmental justice. And you can see these: biodiversity, vaccine, sustainable community, biotechnology. So you can see there's a wide variety of topics, but the idea within each of these is that students are going to use multiple lenses to try and solve this problem that's going to be, or topic, or issue in their own community that's going to be essential to their future. So we can go on to the next slide. And what we are really focused on is how they use those convergence education approaches to discover the problem, understand the problem, and then act on that problem. And I'll tell you a little bit about our approach. Basically, we approach the problems using a variety of disciplines. And if you think about any one of those topics, say biodiversity, you can certainly understand that through a scientific lens. But when we're thinking about sustainability and biodiversity, how we protect biodiversity, if we don't bring in other lenses, we don't find solutions and ways forward and progress that is sustainable. So we try and position students as researchers in their community. They do STEM investigations, but they're also doing social science investigations, things like surveys of their local community members, or interviews, or oral history gathering, and really trying to think about multiple ways of knowing and understanding this problem. Now, if you're familiar with Education for Sustainable Development, you might be very familiar with the idea of sort of 3 lenses: environmental, social, and economic. And I think anyone who's coming from a discipline-specific background can probably see where their discipline fits within these. Environmental, we've got biology, we've got chemistry, social, we have a lot of the social sciences. Economics, we've got math. But then there's also so many other points, so that in environmental, maybe we're also using math there to understand those perspectives and what's possible and what's not. And then we also add a 4th lens, which is ethical, because I think when we're thinking about sustainability, the idea of what's right and what's fair is a really important perspective for students to bring. And we think that by sort of combining all these perspectives and all these disciplines together, it helps us create spaces to explore sort of more sustainable pathways and explore different perspectives. So we can go to the next slide. And what I've done here is I've just pulled out, I have a couple examples for you in 2 of our guides of how this works in action, because I think sometimes it's hard to imagine. So I'm using this example from our Sustainable Communities Guide. And one part in it is students are exploring how we can use the space in our communities to help our community thrive. And so they do a lot of different things within that space. They are doing things like exploring how they personally feel about their ideas and their, and the way they feel in a space. And there's this little bit of social emotional learning there. They do a community survey into understanding, what do people in my community want? What do they need? So that's civics. They're mapping community access to services, it's geography and a housing density calculation, math, ecosystem services of the green spaces in their community, which is getting into biology, earth science with the future changes to space due to sea level rise, redesigning the community to being more sustainable and sort of creating those future visionaries. So that's design thinking. And you start to see how these things both interconnect and depend on each other to find ways forward. And I'll show you one other example if we can go to the next slide. So this is an example from our guide on vaccines. And one of the first things students do within that guide is they go out into their community and start talking to people. What are your concerns about vaccines? What are you thinking? What do you know? What do you not know? And they create a community concerns list. And then they follow that up with having an intergenerational conversation. So with people who are older to learn about what happened? What was it like when you were smaller? What were vaccines like? What was it like when the polio vaccine came out? And so really getting into that history. They compare maps looking at disease prevalence over time and epidemiology. They're researching into different types of vaccines and diseases, which gets into medicine. They're modeling antigen, antibody pairing, immunology. They're doing clinical trial design. They're looking at how we design clinical trials and how we make sure that they're equitable and sort of a biomedical. They do an efficacy calculation using math. They look at access to vaccines. And so there's a big ethics component there. And they analyze news sources and bias, looking at information literacy. And then they're sharing information back to the community based on what they've learned. So there's communication skills there. And you can see how all of those different pieces are coming together to make something stronger than any one individual piece could do. So just moving forward, I can go to the next slide. I briefly just want to share a few features of these guides. Should you be an educator and want to use them, you can go to the next slide. So they're all freely available for download. I think you'll probably have that link in the chat. They're designed for middle school and high school students. They're translated into multiple languages. We've worked really hard to make them as accessible as possible. So they're optimized for screen readers. There's guide planners to help educators and sort of a modular approach. So depending on how much time teachers have, they can sort of do more or less of the guide. We have a wrap around story map. So there's these multimedia extensions, and we also do a lot of professional development about it. So I hope that you'll have the opportunity to use some or all of these guides in your practice. And I can go to the next slide. Can I go to the next slide? Okay, well, while that next slide, there we go. The next slide's coming up. We have 3 more guides that will be coming out soon. There's one on energy, one on the ocean, and one on climate action. So we're really excited to share those, and thank you for letting me come in and speak with you.
Heidi, thank you so much. Next, we'll move on to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Jeff and Benita, I think you are going to be our next speakers.
Good afternoon, and thank you for everyone who's hung in here. We still have almost 100 participants after 3 hours. My name is Dr. Jeff Salee, and today I have with me Dr. Bonita Williams. We are from the National Institute of Food and Agriculture, which is part of USDA. And we are national program leaders. Dr. Williams works with children, youth, and families at risk, and I work with STEM programming, so it's a great match for Convergence. Okay, there we go. To give you a quick overview, the National Institute of Food and Agriculture provides, it's known as NIFA, provides capacity grants to land-grant universities. NIFA provides competitive grants to support research, education, and extension at various locations and institutions. Okay. NIFA programs cover many different topics, and you can see from this slide here: advanced technologies, animals, environment, health, farming and ranching, and people. And that's the part we're most interested in. We work with communities, we work with families, and we also work with youth. The Institute of Youth, Family, and Communities, as we drill down to getting to the youth component, supports the human and social components of NIFA's food and agricultural sciences through research, education, and extension programs. Its priorities are strengthen the capacity of higher education institutions to develop and implement curricula and teaching programs in the food and agricultural sciences, as well as the science, technology, engineering, and math disciplines. We develop programmatic solutions to reoccurring issues facing individuals, families, and communities, and we prepare young people to be responsible, contributing members of society and change agents. And that gets us to where we work. The 4-H Youth Development Program is the youth outreach program of the USDA and is implemented by the Cooperative Extension System through over 110 land-grant colleges and universities in the United States. For more than 100 years, 4-H has welcomed young people of all beliefs and backgrounds, giving youth a voice. And we've heard a lot about voice today and how it ties into convergence. We give them a voice to express who they are, how they make their lives, and make their communities better. But we also challenge them to solve problems, to learn about community issues, and to come up with ideas how to make those community issues better. And we have many youth that do that. 4-H empowers youth to reach their full potential, working and learning together. We have, wow, where are we at? We have the different types of 4-H programs, but no matter what type of program it is, it's really focused on three things. It's focused on science, it's focused on healthy living, and it's focused on civic engagement and leadership. All three of these, what we call mission mandates, they work together very closely, which is also a convergent in helping communities grow and to thrive and helping youth learn. We do this through hands-on education. We help youth build confidence, creativity, and curiosity, and life skills such as leadership and resiliency. 4-H programs and resources are available at home. They are available through local in-person clubs. They are available through virtual clubs, 4-H camps, in-school, and after-school programs. One of our latest projects is called 4-H at Home. And if you look at the link in the chat box, that will take you there. And it is full of lessons that have been developed by many of the land-grant universities that we work with that converge contextual projects, which we call 4-H projects, with different academics. And it's a great place for youth to learn. And it's all free. Okay, today's example, we want to talk about the Juntos 4-H program. Juntos 4-H is a program that helps Latino youth, grades 8 through 12, and their families gain the knowledge and skills they need to bridge the gap between high school and higher education. Program components include family engagement, 4-H clubs, one-on-one success coaching and mentoring, and summer programs. Specifically today, we're going to talk about a summer program that was very academic and converged a lot of different things together. So as I go through this, think about all the things that you have learned about convergent education today and how it ties into the things that I'm discussing. The programs are available to English and Spanish speaking students. Okay, Convergence in SciFar Juntos 4-H program. Now this is one example from one university because you know how RFAs are. All the recipients develop their own programs. So we're telling you about one that we thought fit this very well. Juntos students participated in a summer academy to learn about animal science, learn about horses, DNA extraction, and PCR processing. The students were brought on campus and lived as college students experiencing higher education. They stayed in the dorm. During the academy, they interacted with live horses and they learned about riding, roping, and animal care to set some context for this. Next slide. Okay. During the Juntos Academy, the youth met with Latino graduate students and professors. They learned about biotechnology and how it connects to animal science. They learned about career opportunities in agriculture and beyond. Students collected horse DNA samples, they processed those samples, and they learned how to read and interpret DNA PCR results. The youth analyzed and collected the data and compared the results to determine the familiar family relationships between the horses. The students studied and applied STEM processing skills, they applied critical thinking skills, they explored biotechnology, and they experienced a deep understanding in animal science. All the lessons were contextualized to a live example. And the bonus of this, they gained a new appreciation for higher education. Okay, I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Williams and let her take it from here. Dr. Williams, I think you're on mute.
I am. Thank you, Jeff. And good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to share a little more information with you about the SciFar program. And the Juntos 4-H program has some of the following program outcomes, and we have some of them listed there for you to read. 89% of the students feel confident that they will continue their education after high school. And 91% of the participating youth improve their grades in school. 80% of the students feel more aware of careers in STEM. This particular program is considered a national program which started with North Carolina State University and now has some 14 sites or states as program participants across the country. And I would mention here that Dr. Johnson mentioned earlier about bringing programs to scale, and this is one example. This program has been around for a number of years. Now some general information about the SciFar program. It is a program that is federally funded, and the funding amount is about $8.4 million. And the purpose of the Children, Youth, and Families at Risk program is to build resilient families and communities in which children and youth lead positive, secure, and happy lives while developing the skills, knowledge, and competencies necessary for fulfilling, contributing adult lives. Now, what we have here is the RFA example that you can use, and I believe they're going to post that for you, and also some more information about the SciFar program. Here we have some NIFA resources for you to use, and these resources range from news and subscriptions, funding opportunities, and application resources. Thank you. We have here our non-discrimination statement, and NIFA is a USDA sub-agency and is an equal opportunity provider. And I believe we jumped through a few slides, and I'll just share the information that I was going to share with you. In order to be eligible for the program, you have to be a land-grant institution. And Dr. Salih mentioned that to you earlier. We have 112 land-grant institutions. They're the 1862 the 1890 and the 1994. And the 1890 institutions are the HBCUs, and some examples of those would be Fort Valley State University and North Carolina A&T State University. An 1862 example would be Cornell University and Texas A&M University. And some of the tribal schools, I'll just mention a couple of those. Chief Dull Knife College and Bay Mills Community College are two examples of the tribal schools. Now, we also have a federal website for you, and it has more details and information concerning the program, including annual reports and evaluation studies. And some of our SciFar topic areas or project areas include 27% nutrition programming, 27% parenting programming, and 15% STEM programming, 21% workforce prep programming, and 10% leadership programming. And that's all we have for you today.
Nita, Jeff, thank you so much. We'll next go to Kelly, who will be presenting on behalf of CDC. Kelly? Just want to be mindful of time.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. As mentioned, I am Kelly Bloodworth. I am an epidemiologist at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the team lead for STEM education and training within our Division of Scientific Education and Professional Development. Through STEM at CDC, our mission is to provide quality STEM resources to support students of all ages and backgrounds early in their careers to becoming disease detectives and public health leaders, as a way to build a public health workforce that represents the convergence of a wide range of expertise of fields to support the future of public health practice. Next slide, please. We offer lesson plans, curricula, and training for students and teachers, and over 65 different internships, fellowships, and training opportunities for college students and early career professionals in the wide range of public health careers that we have at the agency. Next slide. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about our CDC Nerd Academy curriculum and how it brings together science, technology, engineering, and math with other subjects like social studies, civics, language arts, economics, health, and sociology to answer real-world public health questions that were being asked during the COVID-19 pandemic. The curriculum features a fictional novel emerging respiratory disease, or NERD for short. And while NERD is fictional, the curriculum is based on real scientific data and real scenarios that happened during the historic COVID-19 pandemic. CDC Nerd Academy is a great example of the transdisciplinary approach as the pathway to the convergence education. Next slide. The curriculum, as mentioned, was developed during the COVID-19 pandemic when students were asking questions about public health. And not just questions about the pandemic itself, but also questions about other public health issues like racism, bullying, the opioid misuse epidemic, obesity, and more. The innovative and standards-based STEM curriculum, it's framed around 8 real-world questions that are pandemic related. And the curriculum itself includes interactive activities that engage students in team-based solutions with considerations from across multiple disciplines. The questions answered in this curriculum, like many public health questions, are very multifaceted. Public health is really about using science and data to protect everyone in every community from health threats. So to do this well, experts from different disciplines, including STEM, the liberal arts, and humanities, must work together. In CDC Nerd Academy, students learn about the science behind public health, but also how simple math and statistics can digest billions of data points into actionable information. how things like transmission, individual behavior, and the social influences on health are all interconnected, and also how vital communication can be key to public understanding. By drawing on the interconnectedness of these various fields, students work to think critically about these questions using real public health scenarios in the classroom. Next slide. The curriculum itself uses lesson plans, educational student videos that introduce and integrate concepts across multiple disciplines to help answer the title question. It uses activity demonstrations for teachers or other educators to see how lesson plan activities work in the classroom, and career spotlights that highlight specific jobs in public health and how public health experts from different fields collaborate with each other every day. The students work independently and in teams through the various lesson plan activities to simulate how public health practice is done through critical thinking, collaboration, and innovation. Next slide. And then as an expansion of the career spotlights, we also brought these animated characters to life so students can see real CDC staff who have these jobs and hear examples about how public health practice in the real world happens using the same approaches that they are learning in the classroom, including convergence education. Next slide. To support teachers and other educators in teaching public health using this problem or question-based transdisciplinary approach, we offer teacher training through our CDC Science Ambassador program, including regional trainings this year in 2023 in San Diego, California, Austin, Texas, and Atlanta, Georgia, as well as a one-year fellowship where teachers come to CDC in Atlanta for 1 week and then work remotely with us back in their classroom for an entire year. Next slide. So to learn a little bit more about CDC Science Ambassador, CDC Nerd Academy, find additional STEM and CDC resources, please visit our website or contact us. Thank you.
Now we have a speaker from USPTO and one more speaker after that. We're almost near that finish line.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Joyce Ward from the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. I have the pleasure of serving as the Director of the Office of Education at the USPTO. And our focus is on inspiring, cultivating, supporting students to become innovators, entrepreneurs, innovators. And you may say, how does that play into convergence? And it is because, I mean, really intellectual property is a paradigm of convergence. It is where technology, industry, healthcare, every discipline you can think of converge together to turn ideas into tangible expressions that people can share or that they can commercialize and that they can provide to others. So next slide. At the USPTO, we are looking at invention education and intellectual property education, and looking at what these areas require for students, whether it's literacy or the arts or communication. We're looking at how disciplines converge and students engage in real world problem solving. I heard Catherine Owens talk about joy. We're really looking at how you get students engaged and interested in developing ideas that they care about and to take those ideas to impact. Next slide. And so we have here an example of from the Convergence report showing what invention or showing what a traditional classroom might look like if you're looking at matter from a disciplinary approach. What we are attempting to do is find to move to transdisciplinary, where students are engaging in real world problem solving, and not only are they learning the subject, but they're actually having an investment in what the problem is. And so the example that is in the report is actually patterned in large part on a program in Delaware. There's a teacher, wonderful teacher, Jordan Estock, who gets his engineering students engaged by asking them to solve real world problems. So they aren't just learning about a problem in a textbook, but they're actually going out and working with students who are in need of assistive technology in order to do their jobs. And the students are looking at ways to help students with differing abilities do their job in a more effective way. So you have students who are invested in a problem, who take an interest in it, but one of the key things is that they're actually consulting with people who have the problem to figure out a solution for it, which is often critical to ask people who have the problem how you would solve it. Next slide. So just in terms of, I want to tell you about some of the resources and opportunities that the USPTO has related to Convergence education. Examples include the Science of Innovation lessons, which you can find on in the chat. I believe someone is putting up the website there. We have inventor trading cards that focus on inventors and entrepreneurs from all walks of life. We have invention and intellectual property lessons. Our National Summer Teacher Institute really focuses on that teacher development piece and encouraging innovators to take Convergence to the next level. And we have a Master Teacher of Invention and Intellectual Property Education program, which is focusing on training the trainers. All of these opportunities are ways for educators to engage, to learn more about intellectual property, but as Dr. Valdez pointed out, making that vital connection between ideas, from ideas to innovation, from innovation to impact, and actually giving students an opportunity to be involved in their own futures and to contribute their ideas. And so next slide, I want to tell you about one of the exciting materials that you can find out there. One is a lesson plan that you can find on Dr. Rory Cooper. He is a tremendous individual, as well as he's the founder of the Human Engineering Research Laboratories at Pittsburgh at University of Pittsburgh, and also a senior scientist with the Department of Veterans Affairs. And this lesson was actually developed by an educator who was looking at this concept of how can you engage students around the concepts of innovation from the standpoint of looking not only at the actual problem, but bringing in a number of disciplines to try to solve it. So you can find this plan on the USPTO website. You can see we are following a 5E model where we're encouraging students to engage, explore, explain, elaborate, evaluate. There is also in each section a description of Convergence education. Next slide, please, where you can view more about the transdisciplinary nature and approach that emphasizes the need to integrate subject matters. Next slide, please. Next month, you did hear my outstanding colleague, Reginald Duncan, talk about Equip HQ. That is a site that will officially launch next month, but it's a brand new one-step education hub with engaging and interactive content and activities and lessons and videos of real world students as well as inventors. And we definitely want to encourage the inventor or inner inventor in every child and make sure that everyone understands that they have that capability. And I believe that the next slide, we have a short video to show that highlights Equip HQ.
Get to know Equip HQ. Equip HQ from the United States Patent and Trademark Office is built to teach important concepts about intellectual property, or IP, and to encourage young people to participate in the culture of innovation by recognizing the value of putting ideas into action. Equip HQ offers free, standards-aligned lesson plans that are designed to introduce invention education and intellectual property concepts to K-12 students. Teachers can use the site to find structured activities for their classrooms, or students can explore and complete activities on their own. Simulations of IP processes present learners with play-based learning, and our Inventor Story video series introduces learners to both young and adult inventors who share their stories, ideas, and the lessons they have learned from inventing. All lesson plans and activities can be filtered by grade level and are crafted to inspire student choice. The Mission Equip Learning Path guides students of all ages through the study of intellectual property. Some activities ask students to identify real-life challenges that are meaningful to them. Learners are then prompted to use their ingenuity to design new products and services that can help solve these problems. With Equip HQ, students learn that ideas don't have to be world-changing to be useful. Invention is inclusive, and everyone can do it. Even small changes that make products or experiences a little bit better can have a big impact.
So thank you for your time. And that is Equip HQ. Again, one of the newest things that USPTO is releasing. Special thanks to all of USPTO and our colleagues who have worked on this program, especially Juan Valentin, who has put in a lot of time and effort and energy in promoting this program.
Joyce, thank you so much. We really appreciate your willingness to jump in. You know, we had a recent staffing presentation presenter change, so appreciate your willingness once again. Next, we have NIST, Davina, and we are right at the 3 o'clock mark, but if folks could just give us a few more minutes, I know Davina has some wonderful information to share as well. Thanks.
Yes, thanks so much, and I'll try to make it quick. Davina Pruitt-Mental, I serve as the lead for academic engagement within the NICE program office, the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education. That's led by NIST, which is part of the US Department of Commerce. So next slide. And the mission of the Department of Commerce, of course, is to create the conditions for economic growth and opportunity. And as you see from this image, that's across all industry and economic sectors, from manufacturing to healthcare, defense, the whole gamut. Next slide. And within the commerce, we have NIST. And NIST, of course, is our mission is to promote U.S. innovation and in industrial competitiveness. And that's done through advancing measurement science and standards and technology in ways that really enhance economic security and improve our quality of life here in the U.S. Next slide. As well as internationally, I should say. And one thing that to see the connection with NIST is that, or many that do not realize, that the federal role of commerce and trade was established in the US Constitution. So it provides the basis of trust for US consumer in knowing that items that you purchase are fit and they operate well and are safe and the quality they are expected. So thus, NIST was originally in 1901, created the National Bureau of Standards, but then changed its name to NIST. Next. So NIST at a glance, you can see is a wide range of labs and associations and manufacturing groups. We have Nobel Prize winners, which is really cool to walk down the hall and bump into one. So a wide range of interest and areas of expertise. And the next slide. And you can see that there are 6 main labs. So everything from measurement science to our measurement laboratory to physical measurement to engineering lab to the ITL lab, the information technology lab, which is where the computer security division and the applied security division that I'm in is located at. So a wide range of opportunities. And you can see how I'm getting to the method to the madness here on the convergence, how those interconnect. So next slide. So NIST leads the federal standards policy to ensure the continued US global economy competitiveness and the technology leadership. In the next slide. So example, there are multiple standards within just the ITL lab. So we have the artificial intelligence standards and framework, the IoT, the secure programming, the data science, goes on and on. Here are just three: the NIST risk management framework, we have the privacy framework, and we have the NICE framework. They didn't show up very nicely there, I apologize. And what we tried to do with each of these individual, even though they're in the ITL lab within different programs, the next slide, and hopefully it comes up, is show how the different efforts overlap. And a recent project is actually converting these cybersecurity and IT related human readable standards or frameworks to machine readable data sets, so that we can see how these standards and workforce framework, for example, how they overlap, but also the thinking is how we can think differently about how projects within our own division or across NIST agency show convergence of these different areas and see connections that we might not have thought about before. It might lead to different ways to solve problems by looking at combining our resources. So next slide. And another effort is collaborating for Impact Now program, or the COIN program, that looks to solve problems for NIST and the nation through collaboration across organizational boundaries. And so the next slide. One project was the NIST Educational STEM Resource Registry, or what we call NESTR, and which is open to the public. It sprung out of during COVID, but gained a lot of steam, and it was developed as a portal for multiple resources across the NIST, different NIST laboratories and the different groups, and a way there's a filtering system within it that allows you to search, but the search opportunity allows to spark some additional multidisciplinary programs and projects. And so another effort is within my own program, the NICE program office, and you see an image here with a quilt with a needle and thread. That image is something that we use often to really highlight the purpose of NICE, to serve as a convener for bringing multiple stakeholders together, from academia, from government, from industry, to serve the main purpose, which is to prepare, grow, and sustain a cybersecurity workforce. But the next slide. And one of the efforts that one of our projects included the development of the roadmap for K-12 cybersecurity education that was developed with multiple partners over a year and a half in the making. And you can see that the second pillar or element includes engaging students where disciplines converge. So really emphasizing the need to show how the convergence of multiple disciplines in today's global society includes cybersecurity, rather than seeing cybersecurity as sort of a standalone entity. It is across multiple disciplines, multiple areas, multiple industry sectors. And our current implementation plan works to highlight the key problems in society where cybersecurity connects, and highlights how convergence of these disciplines and learning and teaching through that convergent mindset can help lead to solutions. And then the last slide. Finally, at NIST, we are all hands on deck with the CHIPS Act. Everyone in all the labs within NIST are part of this project, as well as all our other federal partners, but we're looking at ways to look at problems differently, and then not only what the main purpose for the CHIPS Act, but how can we also solve problems together, pulling all of these groups together. So it's all hands on deck, but there are great opportunities to really highlight the convergence. So hopefully that kind of highlights some of the things that we're doing at NIST, and how our multiple laboratories are working together, no longer in a silo. Thanks.
Thank you, Davina. So we can go to the next slide. And I'm going to also ask my IWG co-chairs to join me on the screen, and just to, we really want to acknowledge the so many individuals who have been a part of the Interagency Working Group on Convergence. So you can see on this slide here, many of our current and former members who again have contributed in so many ways, and particularly in the development and production of the report that we've shared with you today. We also really would like to acknowledge the webinar support that we received from the National Science Foundation, and two individuals in particular, Emily, who I would love for her to show her face, but she may not, because she is behind the scenes managing a well-oiled machine right now. She is the IWG Executive Secretary. And so she has been instrumental in developing, putting together this event. And also really want to acknowledge Jennifer Childress, who is an Einstein Fellow with DoD right now, and again has been instrumental in developing, managing this webinar as well. So really gratitude needs to be extended to those two individuals. And with my co-chairs, Jorge, Louis, again, we just really want to thank everyone who has been able to join us today. We hope that this report and everything that has been shared today is of value. It really, is something that you can take and implement, and, make a difference in the lives that you have, encountered through your educational and even career pursuits. So with that, we would like to end our webinar today, but again, our deep appreciation for those who were able to join, and we look forward to being able to share more rich resources in the future. Thanks so much. Bye.